Good morning. Yeah.
Good morning,
We warmly welcome all the participants who joined me today for the second semester of the postgraduate course. Because, so you sit here. Because for the first semester, most of you have been exempted due to completion of the Diploma in Applied Banking and Finance program. Therefore, most of you will directly join to the second semester. Today, we will commence the subject Foreign Trade and Finance as the first subject of the second semester. Let's, prior to tell about the subjects, I will tell you about the details of the course. As you know, the second semester, there are 4 subjects. Each subject consisting of 50 hours. It means we will conduct around 12 lectures, regular lectures, weekly basis. Today we will commence 2 subjects. As a morning session, the foreign trade, and the afternoon session, financial analysis. Then at the end of each subject, regular examination will be conducted. It's our normal form, but it depends of this time. It depends of the country situation. If the country situation be normal, after the lecture session of each subject, we will be conducting the subject examinations. And also the time is, first subject we will conduct 8:30 to 12:30, and second subject it will be 1:30 to 5:30. And you have to complete all 7 subjects. Second semester there are 4 subjects, and the third semester there are 3 subjects. To be eligible for the postgraduate diploma, you have to be completed all 7 subjects. And pass mark is as usual 51, and merit pass is 65, and distinction pass is 81. And also, I would like to tell you that there are 2 gold medals also for this postgraduate course. One is Best Student Gold Medal. It's depend on the highest average of the all 7 subjects. And the second one is Best Performer. It's depend on the highest number of distinctions, and these distinctions to be the highest marks of each subject. More details you can ask from the course coordinator. He's Mr. Kalinga. He's our assistant director. And also you can contact me. My mobile number is 07736 700 51. I am Buddhika Godakanda. And these are the things I want to tell you about the overall program. When I come for the foreign trade and finance, your resource person is Mr. Susantha Caldera. So is here, you can see him. So it's the vast experienced resource person in the IBSL. So was the banker, has more than 35 years experience in the trade finance. Former assistant general manager, Cargill's in trade, Cargill's bank, and also head of trade in HSBC, Standard Chartered, and also was a consultant in trade in DB Bank. So it's the visiting lecturer other than the IBSL, University of California. And also, other than the postgraduate course, so it's lecturing for here, DBF subject, international trade. And so has the experience here more than 15 years in the particular trade finance subject, vast experience and excellent lecturer in our faculty. If you have any doubt about the program, you can ask from sir. Sir will assist you definitely. These are the things I want to tell you, and Mr. Susantha Caldera is here. I warmly welcome you, sir, and I would like to invite you to commence the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We started this program in 1988. It was in 1988. I was one of the students at that time. So after so many years, now I am lecturing for the other students, right? This is something I really value. If we talk about the foreign trade, the syllabus, I think you all are having this, right? we are going to discuss about the important factors in international trade, but I am not going to discuss all the factors because we have a limited time period. It's only 12 classes. It's a very, very limited time period. So when I am doing high diploma in trade, I have a class that I cover about 96 hours with some practical experience, hands-on experience in checking documents and all. But here I had to, basically I will do awareness program on foreign trade and finance, because foreign trade and finance is a vast area. It's like a sea, right? It's a vast area. And the other thing is, like the sea, it is getting changed every moment. What we have learned, what we have practiced 40 years, 40, 45 years back is no more. The applicable law has been changed, the practices has been changed, right? Everything. In Sri Lanka, during last 1.5 years, since April, first COVID patient we identified in somewhere in April, March, April. Then somewhere in end April and March last year, Central Bank issued certain circulars. We changed the entire import-export operation guidelines, right? So whatever the guidelines we knew, now obsolete. It's changed. So that is why this particular subject is not easy to understand, because everything getting changed. Therefore, you have to be in touch with the subject. You have to be in touch with the subject. You have to refer to the news articles in the papers, and you have to watch the television news, right? Teledrama විතරක් නෙමෙයි. නාටකංකාරයොත් බලන්න. හැබැයි නාටකංකාරයෝ දෙනි ඉනිමය බලන ගමන් නිවුස්ුත් බලන්න. ඒ දෙකෙන් නාටකංකාරයන්ගෙනුත් දෙවෙනි ඉනිමෙනුත් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ප්‍රශ්නේ ඉන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි නිවුස් වලින් ප්‍රශ්න එනවා. Right? Therefore, always be in touch. Then, if there's any changes, try to dig into that and try to learn. Because always, not like those days, you can go to Google and then search for it. Right? So we are going to learn about the complexities of international trade and payment methods. Then we are going to discuss about how it is affecting importers and exporters, right? Then trade promotion initiatives and institutions like EDB, BOI, Chamber of Commerce, like that. Then foreign exchange operations and exchange risk management, a very, very important thing at the moment, right? Then correspondent banking and managing the country risk and bank risk. So these areas we are going to discuss. If you have, I think you all have completed, most of you have, but 90% of you must have completed your DABF or AIB. So it is not a new thing to you. You know most of these things, right? The learning outcome and the key areas, you can see the syllabus. I am not going to discuss the syllabus now, but these are the main things what we are going to learn, right? Okay, now we'll go to the class. Introduction to International Trade and Methods of Payment. The most important thing in this class from now onwards, right? Please ask questions. Please ask questions. That's very, very important. Don't wait without asking a question, and don't call me in the midnight. Sir, I wanted to ask you a question, but I was a little bit shy to ask that, right? At that time. And people are calling me. I always cooperate with you, but only thing I'm asking you is, please stop me and ask any questions, because for many of you, this is a alien subject. Because of that, you have to clear your gray areas when we are discussing. You can ask me in any language, right? English or Sinhala. Stop me and ask. Well, I'm not going to teach the language. I'm teaching international trade. ඒකට මට ඔයගලන්ට වදින්න කතා කරන්න මම මොන language එකක් හරි use කරනවා. I think you will like it, right? Rather than sticking to a language, because this is not a language class. So don't be shy. Ask the questions, because what you are thinking is, a lot of people are thinking, I don't know whether others will laugh at me, whether the sir will think that I am a fool. No, you are asking a very valid question. Where most of the other students are also having this question, and some are shy to ask that question. So you are preventing giving the knowledge to everybody, right? So by asking questions, you are helping your other colleagues. ඒකෙන්ද කවුරුක්වත් hina වෙන්න එපා. එයාට අපි මම ක්ලාස් එකේ හිටියා නම් මගේ ක්ලාස් එකේ නම් මම ඒ ළමයින්ට ක්ලැප් කරනවා. අහන question එකකට. Unfortunately, we are doing it online, right? I prefer to have it physical classes, right? That is more enthusiastic, right? We are talking to each other, we are fighting with each other, we are cracking jokes and all. I mean, here, nothing. We are like robots. What to do? We hope at least towards the end of this class, at least we will be able to get a chance to see each other. Right? Some of the students which were following my class in 2012, 2013, 14, ඔයගේ පරණ ළමයි තාම ඉන්නවා. මම කොහේ ගියත් දැක්කොත් කතා කරනවා. කතරගම යනවා නම් මට නවතින ප්ලේස් එක සේරම ලෑස්ති කරලා දෙනවා. කතරගම People's Bank manager, Bank of Scotland manager, ඒ වගේ කට්ටිය. දැන් ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉන්නවද දන්නේ නැහැ. මේ තාමත් මම නම්බර්ස් තියෙනවා, කෝල් කළොත් තියෙනවා. නූරිලේ ගියත් ඒ වගේ. මම එනවා කියලා කිව්වොත් ඉන්නස අපි හම්බෙමු. So because it was a very friendly atmosphere we had, right? Especially for postgraduate class, we had a very friendly atmosphere. I'm happy to say, about 3 years back, 2 years or 3 years back, I went to Jaffna, family trip, and all the accommodation was arranged by one of my students. He was working for People's Bank, Jaffna branch, People's Bank, Jaffna branch, senior officer, very senior manager, right? He said, sir, don't worry about everything. You come, I'll arrange you a good place. So that's the most important thing. හැබැයි දැන් නම් ඕගොල්ලෝ නම් මම ඇහැටවත් දකින්නේ නැහැ. ඕගොල්ලෝ මාව දැකලත් නැහැ. මම ඕගොල්ලෝ දකින්නෙත් නැහැ. අර පර්සනල් ටච් එක අපිට නැති වෙනවා. කමන්නේ. අපි බලමු ක්ලාස් ඉවර වෙන ඉස්සෙල්ලා අපිට හම්බ වෙන්න පුළුවන් වේද කියලා. Okay. Now coming back to the subject, what is international trade? Today I'm going to do the awareness, the introduction to international trade. What is international trade? International trade is exchanging goods, services, or performance and capital across international borders. Right? That means, in simple, doing trading between countries. Across international borders means across countries. We are doing trading with India, right? Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, China, right? Then Belgium, Germany. Across the borders, we do international, the exchange of goods, services, or performance, right? Then we'll discuss about how international trade differs from domestic trade. So before we learn about the international trade, we have to learn about the domestic trade. Have you all done any domestic trade? Have you all done any domestic trade in your life?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Very good. Very good. Can I very good ප්‍රශ්නට නෙමෙයි ආන්සර් කළා පුතේ. මම කියන්නේ හිටියේ ඉන්නේ
Yeah, day-to-day purchases are domestic trade, I guess.
yes. Day-to-day purchases. You gave the correct answer. Day-to-day purchases. When you go to the grocery shop, you purchase something that is domestic trade. Right? When you go to a supermarket, buy things, domestic trade. When you go to Hamidia's to buy a shirt, that is domestic trade. Right? The girls, when you go to a sari center to buy a sari, that's a domestic trade. Right? The interesting characteristics that apply to domestic trade is, for both parties, we use a common language and culture. We use a common language and culture. අපි කඩේට ගිහිල්ලා අපි කතා කරන්න යන්නේ නැහනේ ප්‍රංශ භාෂාවෙන්. අනේ අර බුලත් පිටි කඩේ මිනිස්සයන්ගෙන් බුලත් පිටක් ගන්න ගිහිල්ලා මේ ඒක ප්‍රංශ භාෂාවෙන් ඉල්ලන්න යන්නේ නැහැ, චීන භාෂාවෙන් ඉල්ලන්නේ නැහැ. චීන භාෂාවෙන් නම් ටිකක් කාලයක් යනකොට අහයි වගේ තියෙන්නේ. ඒක ඉස්සරහට බලමු නේද පුතේ? නැත්නම් ඒකත් ඉගෙන ගන්න වෙයි තව ඉස්සරහට. නමුත් අපි මේ එකම භාෂාවෙන් කතා කරන්නේ, same language. සිංහලෙන් කතා කරන්නේ, ජැප්නා වල නම් අපි තමිල් වලින් කතා කරලා අපි ගන්නවා. Right? And the same culture, same law applicable to Sri Lanka. Right? We don't have two different laws. Right? But in international trade, we have different laws. Then absence of custom formalities. When you go to Hamidia's to buy a shirt or imported shoes, do you have to pay custom duties? No. They have already paid custom duty and imported the goods, and now we have displayed. Right? So there's no custom duties. Absence of custom formalities. You don't have to go through a custom barrier. Then usually relatively simple documentation. Very simple documentation. What is the simple documentation in domestic trade?
Maybe a bill.
When you pay, you will get a receipt. Bill or receipt. Right? That's the only documentation, nothing else. But when it comes to international trade, oh my God, how many documents? How many documents? Right? Bill of lading क्या है, commercial invoice क्या है, bill of exchange क्या है, packing list क्या है, inspection certificate क्या है, insurance क्या है, neither. Picture zero. Then a single currency. We go to a shop, we buy things and pay in rupees. We are not going to pay the money in dollars or euros. the single currencies. Relatively simple formalities to transport goods from buyer to seller. Relatively simple formalities to transport goods from buyer to seller. Right? So that means you don't have to hire a vehicle to go, truck to load the goods, but you have bought, right? Or you don't have to book a ship or aircraft. They will put all the goods what you have purchased in a bag, either a plastic bag or silly bag, and then you take them home. That's it, right? Relatively simple formalities to transport goods from buyer to seller. Then we'll see what are the characteristics of international trade. Characteristics of international trade. Now, when it comes to international trade, okay, for example, we'll take two countries, Sri Lanka and China. Sri Lanka and China or South Korea. Right? If you take certain companies in Sri Lanka, Abans, Singer, SoftLogic, Singalgiri, all those companies are dealing with electrical appliances, right? For example, we'll take TVs. Now, if you take TVs, Singer, what is the brand name? Singer market TV. Their brand name is Singer, right? Singer TVs. Abans, LG, very good. LG. SoftLogic, how they can Samsung, very good. Samsung, very good. Singalgiri, Samsung Karana. Right? Now you see all four companies are dealing in international trade. Do you know that most cases, Singer TV and LG, and there's another one which I have come across recently, a brand idea popular. Damro is doing that. Damro is doing that particular brand.
Innovex.
Right? And Innovex, neither.
Innovex.
Very good. One of support the end of it. I don't know what I ලස්සන්ට යන්න පුළුවන්. ඔනෝක තමයි වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. මම මේ ප්‍රශ්න ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගන්න යන්නේ කතා කරන්න ඕන. පුළුවන් තරම් කතා කර මේ ක්ලාස් එකේ ඉන්න postgraduate, if you are not talking, yeah, you have to be ashamed, right? හැබැයි ඉතින් මම එච්චර පුදුම වෙන්නෙත් නෑ, since because I am lecturing in the campuses also. Worst students in campuses, worst. මලාට කතා කරන්නේ ඒ ෆිසිකල් ක්ලාසස් වල මේ වෙන කොහොමද කතා කරන්නේ පෞගි දවස්ලා අපි ඔන්ලයින් කලේ ෆිසිකල් කරනකොටත් කතා කරන්නේ හැබැයි ලියනවා දෙයන්ගේ පිට මුද්දට ලියනවා රයිට් ඒ වගේ වෙන්න එපා ඔයගොල්ලෝ කතා කරන්න ඔය ඔක්කොම කරන්නේ වැඩි හරියක් ඒවා එකම ෆැක්ටරි එකේ ගහලා නන්ට් එක මාරු කරලා ලෙවන්නේ. The components are same, but you had, when it comes to Sri Lanka, you have to market it. So everybody is trying to put up hoardings and then put TV shots, then paper, Sunday papers. full page ads යන්නේ TVs, right? එක paper එකකට observer එක ගත්තොත් Sunday observer එකේ අඩු ගානේ brands 4-5 advertise කරනවා. They are spending a lot of money, costly marketing effort, right? Because we have to promote the stuff. Then coping with custom formalities. The exporters country also, they have to send the goods. When they are sending the goods to Sri Lanka, they have to go through the customs barrier. They have to pay export taxes, export duties. When it comes to Sri Lanka, again we have to go to the import barrier, import taxes, right? Then you have to abide by the custom formalities. Then dealing with different legal requirements. Take countries like Sri Lanka exporting tea to Saudi Arabia. What is our commercial law? English law. Saudi Arabia, what is their law? They are practicing Sharia law, Muslim law. Two different legal requirements, right? Relatively complex transport arrangements. Transport arrangements are relatively complex. Relatively complex in the sense, when you are importing a load of 10,000 sets of TVs, you have to load it to a container. You have to load it to the container, and then you have to find a container carrier. You have to pay the freight. It's very complex, right? The risk involved in foreign currency settlement. At the time we opened the LC, the dollar is about 198. By the time we receive the stuff after 2 months, the dollar has gone up to 204. Typical Sri Lanka, right? Because it is conversion rate, you can't give any guarantees of the value at the time of settlement. Vehicle land and then gain them amount. Vehicle like gain vehicle like we market karna. Okay, the latest 2021 model BMW. This much kill up again. That's up again. 100 million rupees. 100 million rupees. Now you can't see. You know what rate said? I'm not up 100 million loss, right? Those are the issues. The risk of buyer's default, unknown parties. Buyer and the seller, they are unknown parties to each other. So in most cases, the buyer can default the payment. Then overseas government actions. Overseas government also, time to time, they impose certain restrictions. How much the buyer and the seller are known to each other, they are reliable, trustworthy parties. But what can they do if the overseas government is imposing certain restrictions? The best method of learning trade is read. That's it, right? Now, last few months, how much of restrictions the government has imposed. As bankers, you should know, imposed on imports. එතකොට කොහොමද අපි මේක කරන්නේ? දැන් මේ ඔක්කොම ගෙවන්න ඉන්නකොට ගවර්න්මන්ට් එකෙන් දැම්ම සර්කියුලර් එකක්, you can't pay side bills. No foreign currency. There's a scarcity. Only the usance funds, DA bills, you can pay. Right? එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? අපිට ගෙවා ගන්න බැරි වෙනවා. Because of government actions. Right? So all those things are involved in this international trade, all those issues, right? Why do countries trade? Why do countries trade? Right? Why we trade is when you analyze the relationship between the consumption and the work, you can understand. I think majority of you are graduates, so you know you have done these things when you are studying economics, the basics, right? And no country in the world, or not even cities or towns, are self-sufficient. We all have to depend on somebody else, some other country, right? Because they were country to country, they have their own specialization of doing or manufacturing certain product and division of labor, right? And because of ever increasing amount of trade in goods and services between different countries, this is going to be a continuous thing, right? And the other thing is, due to some political impetus from the development of free trade areas, such as NAFTA, SMP, WTO, SAARC, right? People are compelled to do international trade, right? Now, for example, all the SAARC countries, we have signed an agreement, SAARC agreement, to do trading with other countries, right? Even though we wanted to do trading with some other outside SAARC, first we have to give a preference to SAARC countries, right? Then we have bilateral agreements, bilateral trade agreements. What do you mean by bilateral trade agreements and multilateral trade agreements? What do you mean by bilateral trade agreements?
Viparshika.
Viparshika, very good. Parshva, multilateral?
Bahuparshika.
Bahuparshika. Bahuparshika. Parshva, good up. Can you give me one example for bilateral agreement, trade agreement, Sri Lanka?
Lanka.
Yes, tell me. Sri Lanka?
Lanka.
Huh?
Lanka.
Lanka.
Yes.
Right. Lanka, yes, correct.
IFTA agreement.
Yeah, IFTA agreement. That's with Singapore, no?
Yeah.
Then with China,
Yes.
so many bilateral agreements. With Pakistan, so many bilateral agreements. Right, we have, right? So because of that, we are compelled to do this trading. Then quickly we'll go through a certain concept behind this international trade operations, right? And when we talk about the international trade, there are two concepts always coming into our mind, right? One is absolute advantage theory, introduced by Adam Smith in 1776, right? Absolute advantage theory. The other one is theory of comparative advantage and cost, David Ricardo. In the theory of comparative advantage, it is joined with the cost, opportunity cost. Then on top of that, that was introduced by David Ricardo and his team in 1817. On top of that, the opportunity cost theory introduced by Gottfried Haberler. Right? All three concepts is getting involved in explaining why countries do international trade. Right? First one, we'll see theory of absolute advantage. Right? Each country has their own advantage of producing a particular goods as opposed to another. ලංකාවේ ඇරෙන්නනේ. ලංකාවේ නම් දැන්නේ මොනවා වෙලාද කියලා දෙන්න. ඉස්සර අපිට තිබුණා tea, rubber, coconut. Coconut dropped. Rubber half a drop. Tea, those days we are the world #1 tea, world #1. Ceylon tea, no more, right? Now, for the sake of understanding this one, right? Sri Lanka has absolute advantage of producing tea. Apihitamu. While Canada has for wheat and Caribbean has for bananas, Caribbean islands for bananas, right? Now, these are we have our own advantage of producing tea, and Canada producing wheat, and Caribbean islands has for banana. Though Sri Lanka can grow sugar cane, it has been proved that importing sugar from Brazil or Singapore is much cheaper. Now, we tried cultivating sugar cane. Where are the sugar farms, sugar cane farms?
කන්තලේ
Sevanagala,
Kantare, Sevanagala,
Simbalandu,
Chembalandu, very good.
Inguran,
Alvatta,
Alvatta.
That area where we can grow sugar cane and we can produce sugar. But what's the price of 1 kilo? The finished goods will come to about 125, 130. Whereas you go to Cargill's, you can buy imported sugar at 99 rupees. So will the people will go for our own thing? No. Right? Or no, we are trying to promote, okay, can we say our sugar is organic sugar? එහෙම ගන්න කට්ටිය කොළඹ හතේ කීප දෙනෙක් ඇති. එහෙම කියලා. නමුත් 99% of the majority will go for the price. That's normal. You and me, we go for the price. So it is easy for us to cheaper to buy sugar from Brazil or Singapore. Yeah, nobody asked me importing sugar from Brazil or Singapore. Why Singapore? Why the Singapore sugar one? Why Singapore? කවුරු කතේ ප්‍රශ්නේ මගෙන් ඇහුවේ නැහැ. ඒ මම සිංගප්පූරු දැම්මේ කියලා. අපේ මේ කස්ටම් ස්ටැටිස්ටික්ස් ගත්තාම ගොඩක් sugar එන්නේ සිංගප්පූරු වලින්. How is it? This is also international trade.
They act as intermediate.
They act as intermediate parties, and they do the dealings, and actually they are also buying sugar from Brazil or any other Caribbean islands, and then from Singapore it will route to Colombo. Right? That is why when we are receiving the sugar, it will come from Singapore. About Singapore, ship load එක සාමාන්‍ය sugar එන්නේ charter party vessels වල ඒ vessel එකේ unload කරලවත් reload කරලවත් නැහැ. මේ කිලින්ම එයාට එනවා අර vessel එක. Right? About the BL එක එන්නේ from Singapore to Colombo. That is why ඒකේ statistics ගන්නේ. Okay. Then due to favorable climatic conditions, natural resources, expertise, and technical know-how, some countries enjoy an absolute advantage in producing particular goods more efficiently, less costly than other countries. Right? For example, take Sri Lanka, right? For paddy cultivation, We have the favorable climatic condition. We have the natural resources, water. We have the expertise. අපේ ගොවි මහත්තුරු ඉන්න experts. They know the traditional paddy cultivation methods, then technical know-how, right? And because of that, we enjoy an absolute advantage in producing paddy, right? Those specialization, these countries can achieve a surplus in production, and such surplus could be traded internationally, right? We'll try to learn this one with a very simple exercise example, right? When we are talking about the absolute advantage, we always try to limit it to one factor, that is labor, right? So here also, for a commodity with only one factor of production, that is labor, right? If one country uses less labor than another to make a given amount of the commodity, that particular country has an absolute advantage for that product, right? Now, in this table, we have two countries, UK and Canada. Wheat ours to produce 1 ton and cars ours to produce 1 cup. Now, UK, they use 300 hours to produce 1 ton of wheat, whereas Canada needs only 200 hours, only 200 hours. Then when it comes to cars, UK need only 150 hours, man hours to produce the car, whereas Canada needs 250 man hours. All right? Okay. Now, on this, at a glance, who has the absolute advantage between these two countries? Who has the absolute advantage of producing wheat?
Canada.
Canada. Who has the absolute advantage of producing cars?
UK.
UK. Right. Theory of comparative advantages, the other one, right? And we discussed about this earlier also. There is a diversification in the conditions of production between different countries, right? This is due to different countries being endowed with different production resources. Then බලන්න මෙන්න මෙහෙම example එකක් අරගෙන අපි ගත්තොත් එහෙම මේ Sri Lanka and New Zealand. Sri Lanka and New Zealand. So both countries. When it comes to tea, manufacturing of tea, you know what sort of a climatic condition we need to manufacture tea. In Sri Lanka, only it will grow heavily in upcountry. Isn't it? Upcountry, that cold climate is ideal for this one, right? Then one moment, technological issues. What is the pain? Hey?
brightness වැඩි කරන්න.
ළමයි ඔයගොල්ලන්ට බෝඩ් එක පේනවද නැද්ද?
පේනවා සර්.
පේනවා සර්.
පේනවා? ඉෂුව එකක් නැහැ නේ? Right, okay. This one, we have a cold climate. Even New Zealand, the climate is like Florida. But can we grow tea there? Can we grow tea there? No. Right? This climatic condition is not the only thing. Labor, climatic conditions, there are so many factors involved in producing items, right? Okay. All right. So as a result, certain countries are more productive than other countries in the production of certain commodities, right? A country therefore has a comparative advantage over other country in the production of that particular commodity. Now that particular thing we'll try to learn with another example. ඔගොල්ලෝ මගේ class other class එකෙන් නම් මම දැක්ක 117 වගේ කට්ටියක් ඉන්නවා. Altogether 135 people have registered, right? So 117 is a very good attendance. Trade finance is a subject you have to learn hard, you have to study hard, and when it comes for examination, if you have attended the classes, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people think there's no point of attending the class. We can go through the lectures later. Recorded me. When you attend the class, as and when you are having issues, you will try to sort it out. Ask questions and try to learn, right? Recording එක බල්ලා කරන්න වගේ නෙමෙයි. ඒකෙන්ද if you attend the classes regularly, I'll guarantee you your pass rates. Right? Normally my postgraduate pass rate in international trade is about 65 to 70%. 65 to 70%. That's a pass rate, right? So those who are not attending the classes, I'm not talking about now. Earlier, if they have not attended the physical classes on a regular basis, they have to resit for the exam. Do you know there are people, about 4 or 5 people. There are 4 or 5 people resetting this exam since 2014. Since 2014. And it took subjects passed, international trade failed. Unlike these days, those are class set ආවෙනත්තම් විශ්නාම තමයි කොලේ ගන්න පුළුවන්. handout එක ගත්තා. ඒ handout එක නම් පාඩම් ගන්න බෑ. මේ වගේ අපි කතා කරලා ඔළුවට දාගන්න. ඔළුවට දාගත්තට පස්සේ no need to study on a daily basis. ඒ ටික revise කර යන්න විතරයි තියෙන්නේ. I'll guarantee you your success, right? Very constant studying, constant. I'll come to that. By next week, we are going to start the reading of URC, UCP and ඔක්කොම හොඳට පටන් ගන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට මේ බේසික් එක හරියට තියාගත්තට පස්සේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ලේසි. right? Okay. comparative advantage. And it's we are going to have this class for 4 hours, right? I don't know about you people. I am lecturing, I am talking for 4 hours. At my age, I can't go on like this. So normally, even for you people, I think, shall we take a comfort break of 10 minutes after 2 hours or so? Are you all right with that? You also can
Okay,
you
sir.
also can you also can grab a cup of tea, right? Get
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So that's fine.
It's okay.
Em-
It is fine, sir.
හොඳයි නේද?
So that's fine, sir.
ඈ?
Yes, sir.
ඔය හොඳයි. That's fine.
හොඳයි නේද? උදාහරණ තේ එකක් හදාගෙන එන්න ළඟින් තියාගන්න වඩින්න පුළුවන් නේ. right? යාත්‍ර මම දන්නවා මේ දුවලා ඉන්නවා මේ අනිත් ක්ලාසස් වලත් මට ඉෂුව එක තියෙනවා විශේෂම post graduate එකේ. post graduate එකේ කට්ටියට මේ ස්ටඩීස් විතර නෙමෙයි මේ කාමරේටලා දොරක් වහගෙන කරන්න වෙන්නේ. එළියේ ළමයි මොනව කරනවද දන්නේ නැහැ. ගේ අනිත් පැත්තේ පෙරලනවද දන්නේ නැහැ. පොඩ්ඩක් ගිහලා එළියට ගිහලා කෑ ගහලා හරි එන්න අපි විනාඩි 10ක් තියාගමු. right? අපි 10 minutes sharp 10 minutes I'll be back even with my cup of tea. You also please join, right? අපි මේ විදිහට පොඩි break එකක් තියාගමු, comfort break එක. Right. Then UK wheat hours to produce 1 ton, $400. Canada, $200. Right? Then when it comes to produce cars, to produce 1 car, UK needs 375 hours. Right? Whereas Canada needs $300. Here, the Canada has an absolute advantage in both goods. When you see, Canada has the absolute advantage in both goods, as it requires fewer hours of labor to produce both cars and wheat. Right? There is a labor only factor, but when you see the other factors and all, then if we take the opportunity cost, the comparative advantage theory ka hamma join වෙන්නේ comparative opportunity cost එකත් එක්ක. හාබ්ලලගේ. Opportunity cost ගත්තාම of producing these goods can be shown as the following, right? Table 3 with the opportunity cost. Now UK, if UK is not producing cars, එතකොට this 375 hours we can use it to produce wheat, isn't it? This 375 hours UK can produce, UK can use that 375 hours to produce wheat, we assume, if you think so. Then how many tons of wheat they can produce? Instead of producing cars, they can produce 0.94 tons of wheat. 0.94 tons of wheat. Okay? If they are not producing cars. And if UK is producing only cars, then how many cars they can produce? Because now the 400 hours, that opportunity cost, now they are using to produce cars. 400 hours cars produce cars, they can produce 1.07 cars. 1.07 cars. Right? Then Canada, instead of producing cars, if they produce wheat, right, they can produce 1.5 tons of wheat. Right? And again, if they put all that 200 hours, what they use for producing wheat to produce cars, then they can produce 0.67 cars. 0.67 cars. Right? Then make that comma Uganda Munada Kilan Kianda Bulam. I'm going to explain from the extra that absolute advantage again. Now with the opportunity cost. Right? Now the UK, if they are not producing wheat, now earlier both countries to produce 1 ton and 1 car, 1 ton and 1 car, right? Instead of producing wheat, if UK is using all their effort to produce cars, on top of another car, the method එක කාය එකක් වෙනවනේ 375 hours ඊට අමතරව වැඩිපුර කාය එකක් ගන්නවා වැඩිපුර කාස් 1.07ක් මේගොල්ලෝ නිෂ්පාදනය කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ they can sell that additional car to Canada. They can sell that additional car to Canada. Still they have another 0.7 man hours. Right? And buy 1 ton of wheat. That also Canada can easily do that, no? Because now if they are not producing cars, if they put all their effort, the opportunity cost to produce wheat, now they are producing 1.50 more wheat. Out of that, 1 ton they can easily sell it to, or they can exchange with UK against a car. They give 1 ton of wheat and they get 1 car from UK. Right? Still, both countries are getting some advantage. Canada, 0.50 and half a ton wheat, either they can give it to their people for consumption or they can sell it to some other country. Right? UK, right? This is how we have to think about this. When you go home, just go through these handouts and see whether you can understand. Then the opportunity cost, I'm not going to discuss about that. I have discussed it enough and enough. Now the international trade. International trade. Right? Now in international trade, we have the buyer and the seller. We have the buyer and the seller, the most important people. Right? And between the buyer and the seller, they have to have a conversation, dialogue, and understanding of what are the products and services they are going to exchange. So they decide on the products and services. Once they decide on the products and services, the next step is to contract negotiation. They have to negotiate a contract, right? Because the buyer is in one country, seller is in another country, they are not known to each other, so better to have a contract, right? Contract of negotiation is a must, right? Then when they are going to discuss contract, they have to discuss about the quantity and the unit price. Then the documentary requirements, right? Shipping requirement. How they are going to ship it? Whether it's containerized cargo or normal cargo, liner shipping or container shipping. All those things they have to discuss. And then they have to prepare the contract. We call it sales contract. Right? They have to prepare the sales contract, and then they have to sign the contract. When it comes to the contracts, then you have to mention the methods of settlement, how you are going to settle the bills, insurance arrangements, who has to bear the insurance. Is it the buyer? Is it the seller? Who? Then after signing the contract, now it is ready between the buyer and the seller. Now they have negotiated, they have decided on what are the things, and they have decided on how they have to settle the bills. And all the nitty-gritty things they have agreed. Now they have to sign the contract. They have signed the contract. After signing the contract, the seller will start the production. For that, he needs working capital, the payment instruments such as LCs, all those things they need. Right? Then the delivery and settlement. Delivery and settlement. Once they finish the production, then they have to deliver the goods and they have to receive the settlement. They have to shipment of goods. After shipment of goods, they have to present the documents to their bankers. Right? Then they have to arrange the financing arrangements and the settlement arrangements. Right? All those things can be summarized in international trade operations. Right? Any questions? Any questions on this? No. Okay, fine. We talk about the contracts. We talk about the contract. A definition of a contract will differ depending on the country and the law which applies. Right? Have you ever signed a contract? Have you ever signed a contract with some organization or with some other party? With some other party? Have you ever signed?
Yes,
Yes.
sir, we have done with the bank. Employer. We have done with the employer.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I can't hear you properly.
We have done.
No, we
employer.
have signed agreements with. We have signed contracts with our bank, our
Right.
employer. That is the only contract I have signed.
Yeah. Right? That's a contract. That's a contract. Right? I don't know about you guys, right?
So when you obtain staff loan from the bank, you have to sign some certain documents. Those are also agreements.
Yeah, those are agreements. The contract, employment contract is a different thing, right? Employment contract are those are agreement. When staff loans, they will not change the criteria because of you. Can I have your name, Kuda?
My name is Indika.
Indika from which bank?
I am from Nation Trust Bank.
Nation Trust. You are in head office or branch?
Yeah, I'm at head office.
Which area?
I'm into transformation.
Transformation. Transformation can
Lean Six Sigma.
Right. Okay. Lean Six Sigma. Okay. Okay. ඔයගලගේ CEO ද තාම ඉන්නවද මේ සියද මේ Mr. හේමන්ත ගුණතිලක
Hemanta Gunatilaka sir, Deputy CEO.
Deputy CEO නේද? හේමන්ත ගුණතිලක. Okay. Right. Recently I came to your head office, and when he saw me, he came running to me, and I think in front of everybody, everybody was looking at me. Why he came and he hugged me and he told the others, Mr. Caldera is I started my banking career under Mr. Caldera. He was one of my, under me, he worked as a management trainee at Standard Chartered Bank, long time back. That was the first time he started his career. For about nearly one year, he was working for me, and he learned everything about banking. Now they are big shots. I was so happy to see him at that position. I think a few months back when I came there. So anyway, now, okay, now it's, if you say Hemanta's position, deputy CEO position, if you are applying for a head of trade or DGM position of a bank, right? First, you will have an interview. අපි ක්ලාක් ලබඩ එනවට නම් දෙන ඕන ගේම් වලක් අසං කරන්න වෙනවා අපිට. No issues, right? The මෙතන now you are going with some experience and some knowledge, your background, your working experience as well as your qualifications. So කොහොමද එක්ක ඔයා යන්නේ බැංකුවට. Now we are going for the DGM or AGM job, right? Then after the interview, they will offer you a contract. They will tell you, okay, this will be your remuneration, this will be your this thing. If you are ready, if you are happy, then you will sign the contract. Otherwise, in our cases, for the last 10-15, more than 10, since late 90s, my first job was with Standard Chartered Bank. I was there for about 25 years, right? I joined as a clerk in 1973, and I left bank after 25 years as a head of trade at Standard Chartered Colombo. From there onwards, I never signed a contract without my counter offers. The bank will offer me, I will say no. This is my offer. I want this to be changed like this, right? Then you put a counter offer. Then the bank, if the bank agrees for my counter offer, they will, then the both parties will sign the contract. Otherwise, we'll throw the contract to a dustbin and we'll come back. Finish, no? Okay, right? International trade with right? In general terms, a contract can be described as an agreement between two or more persons or entities, which may or may not contain specific terms in which there is a promise to do something in return for a consideration. Consideration is a very important thing in a contract. You are working for the bank. You have to do something. In return, what is your consideration? What is your consideration?
Salary.
Salary. Your salary. Your salary is a consideration. Right? The contract should always specify the applicable law. ඔගලගේ contract එකේ බාන්න ගෙදර ගිහිල්ලා ඒ කොපි එකක් තියෙනවනේ ගෙදර ගිහිල්ලා බාන්න ඒකේ තියෙනවා this contract is subject to the jurisdiction of Socialist Republic Sri Lanka. ඔන්න ඔක්කොම හැල්ලා තියෙනවනේ. ඒක තියෙනවා. Applicable law එක. නඩුවක් දාන්න උනත් අපිට තියෙනවා. Right? Once the negotiation process is completed between the parties, the next stage is to sign the contract. Right? What makes a valid contract? There must be a firm offer and acceptance of that offer. Then only it becomes a valid contract. Offer, then you can have a counter offer. Then acceptance. Counter offer in that law. Right? There must be an intention to create a contract. Intention job job intention, right? There must be a consideration. each party provides something to the other. You are putting all the effort to the benefit of the bank, and they have to pay you the salaries accordingly, right? There must be bonuses same bonuses same if you go above more than what is expected from you, the bank should appreciate you. The bank should appreciate you. And the we really appreciate your service. Right? Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Are there differences between agreement and a contract, or are they same?
Pardon? I didn't get you.
Is there any difference between contract and agreement?
Yeah, contract and agreement. Agreement is we are bound to do something. Right? Contract is also, I mean, there's so much difference. But yeah, sales agreement you sign, right? But they are also even in the agreement, before you come to a conclusion, there is an opportunity for do the changes. But once you sign, after that you can't do any changes. After that you can't do any changes. The sales already contract, but in banks, if you say vehicle loan agreement, housing loan agreement, those agreements are banks have their specific agreements, which they will not deviate from the laid down procedures. Right? Contract between two parties, you can negotiate and you can more flexible. Then only offer, counter offer, and acceptance. Then you sign the contract. Right? Otherwise, basically, when you take as a whole, not much of a difference. Right? There must be a capacity to contract. Capacity to contract. Over 18 years when that owner. Over 18 years, and otherwise, people who are the minors doesn't have any capacity to contract. Right? The lunatics, they don't have a capacity to contract. Right? You should be in a correct mind. Consent must be freely given without duress or based on false information. The consent is freely given without duress or based on false information. Right? And the other thing is the purpose must be legal. Always a contract, the purpose must be legal. That's why Colombo Jeff Novel heroin pravahane karanne, to transport heroin from Colombo to Jaffna. Can you have a contract between two parties? Underworld party mafia don contract legal contract it should be, the purpose must be legal. Right? Business we are talking about a valid contract. Once the seller has produced the contract, it will constitute their offer to the buyer, who may respond in one of the following ways. Give acceptance as presented. Give acceptance but with reservations or conditions, for example, counter offer, or reject the offer entirely. and they can reject the offer entirely. අපි කොච්චර jobs වලට job offers වලට ඇවිල්ලා අපි අතහැරලා දාලා එනවද? offer එක ගන්න නැහැ. මම නම් මගේ for the last 25 years, how many times? We say no. We don't like this, right? Then ඒක අපිට තේරෙනවා. Either we reject the entire thing. Information included in a international sales contract. When it comes, now we are talking about not the employment contract, international sales contract. What are the information to be included? Currency to be used applicable for payment. What currency? US dollars, euro, GBP. Exact nature and quantity of goods. Description of goods. Price. Packing requirements. How we have to pack it. In crates, boxes, containers. Right? Inspection and quality control requirement. The buyer needs an inspection certificate and the quality control certificate. Who has to issue that? The authority, the issuing party. Insurance requirement, right? Whether it's insurance, cargo clause A, B, or C, right? Shipping terms to be applied, Incoterms, CIF, FOB, CFR, XWork, dates by which goods must be dispatched, the latest date of shipment, right? Methods and timing of payment, how you have to do the payment. Is it site or is it usance? Is it DP or is it DA? Documents against payment, documents against acceptance, DA. All those things has to be included in the sales contract. Then only between the buyer and the seller, they sign and then start the operation, right? Okay. Now we'll discuss about the parties involved in international trade. Parties involved in international trade. Before that, do you have any questions on information included in an international sales contract? මේ ඔක්කොම අපි පස්සේ ටික ඉගෙන ගන්නවා. ඉගෙන ගත්තට පස්සේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ට අන්තිමටම මෙතන දාගන්න පුළුවන් අර ගැප්ස් ටික පුරව ගන්න. ඒකයි මම හැමතිස්සෙම කියන්නේ හැමදාම ක්ලාස් එකට එන්න. හැමදාම ක්ලාස් එකට ඇවිල්ලා අර ගැප්ස් ටික පුරව ගන්න බලන්න. And I don't know whether I'm doing too much. Make a weakness. Like I have my weakness here is I'm trying to.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Tell me.
So in the future, do we discuss Incoterms in detail?
Yes.
Incoterms?
Yes. And there will be a question also. You can rest assured that definitely you are going to get a question in your final paper.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Right? Okay. Because this is a postgraduate class, all either graduates or professionally qualified people, but still I treat you as students, and my only weakness is I'm going to explain these things in detail to you. මම හිතන්නේ තාම පොඩි උන් කියලා. ඉතින් මට හදා ගන්න බැරි වැඩක් ඕක මේ අර කැම්පස් එකේ ගන්නකොටත් ළමයි කියන්නේ අනේ සර් තමයි හොඳටම කරන්නේ. ඇයි ඉතින් මම ඉතින් ගන්නවනේ. මෝඩෙක් වගේ. හරිනම් මේවා අපිට තියෙන්නේ පාර විතරක් පෙන්නන්න ඕගොල්ලෝ පාර කාලේ නැන්ද. Like Lord Buddha, to show you the path. I will show you the path. Then you have to study. එහෙම නැතු යනවා. ඉතින් මම ඒකින්ද මම පුළුවන් තරම් කියනකොට you have to work with me. Then one day you will be a person better than me. That is what we need. හේමන්තලගේ එහෙම දැක්කම මට ආස අන්න ඒකයි. Right? කොච්චර ආසයිද එහෙම ගෝලෙ අපිට දකින්නකොට. මටත් ඔයගලන්ටත් ඕනේ. And I always get my good guys to follow me and do lectures in these other classes. But මට ඕනේ ළමයිව පොඩ්ඩ හදලා කවදා හරි අපි මැරෙන දවසට ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේවා ගන්න ඕන. ඒකට පාඩම් කරන්න ඕන. හොඳට පාඩම් කරලා තව වැඩියෙන් ප්‍රශ්න අහලා මේ කරන්න ඕන. right? අර NTB එකේ පුතා ඇහුවා වගේ අනිත් ඇත් හැමතිස්සෙම අහලා ප්‍රශ්න අහලා මේ කරන්න. බය වෙන්න එපා, ලැජ්ජ වෙන්න එපා. හැම ප්‍රශ්නයක්ම හරිම important. right? The parties involved in international trade. Shall we take a small break, 10 o'clock? Up 8:30 නෙවෙයි. අපි 10:15 විතර ගමු. right? මේක අපි ඉවර කරලා 10:15 විතර ගමු. 8:30 නේ පටන් ගත්තේ නේද? 9:30 or 9:20 විතර ගමු break එක. That's our 10:20. The parties involved in international trade. The buyer. Obviously. They are the people who places the order and import goods. The seller is a person who is manufacturing and doing the export. Right? And there are certain people who are not the manufacturer. If the seller does not make his own goods, then we have manufacturers also. Right? Then we have shipping companies or airline companies. Why? They are the people who will transport the goods overseas and issue the transport documents, either bill of lading or airway bill. Right? Then agents. Why agents? They are the people who represent either the buyer or seller overseas. Can you name few popular few agents here in Sri Lanka?
Unilever, Nestle
for Nestle products. Okay.
Fonterra brands.
Yeah. යන්නේ නිකන් ඔක්කොම full international මේ යන්නේ නේ. නිතර මේ දකින්න ඒවා. ඊටර මේ පොඩි වල බහිමු කොනේ අපි සාමාන්‍ය මිනිස්සු දකින්න ඒවා. ඔයා හරි කරමු ඔක්කොම ටික හරි. තව ඒජන්ට්ස් ලා ඉන්නවද මොනවාර බ්‍රෑන්ඩ්ස් වල ඒජන්ට්ස් ලා?
Dolly Butler.
Huh?
Dolly Butler.
Okay. They are the agents. ඔය ඔක්කොම මේ Dolly Butler මොනවද ඒජන්ට් මම නම් දන්නේ නැහැ. කියන්න බලන්න පුතේ. එදු කියන්න බලන්න. Dolly Butler, they are the agents for
Cow and Gate.
huh?
Cow and Gate.
Cow and Gate. Right. Okay. අන්න අද මම ඉගෙන ගත්ත එක. ඔයගලන්ගේ. Right. අපි පොඩි කාලේ බීපුවා නේද? හරි. තව මොනවද අපි ගන්න බලන් ඒජන්ට්ස් ලා?
Toyota Lanka.
Toyota Lanka. අන්න ටක් ගාලා මතක් වෙන ඒවා. Toyota Lanka. They are the agents for Toyota vehicles here.
HEMAS for pharmaceutical products.
Or HEMAS Pharmaceuticals, they are agents for a lot of pharmaceutical products. Abans, they are the agents for LG appliances, no? Right? Like that. They are the people who represent either the buyer or seller overseas. Right? Shipping registries. මේ ඒජන්ට්ස් ලා මේ විතරක් නෙමෙයි දැන් අපි හිතමු ඉම්පෝර්ටර් කෙනෙක් ලංකාවේ ඉන්න ඉම්පෝර්ටර් එයාගේ ඒජන්ට්ස් ලා ඉන්නවා දාලා දැන් මම දන්නවා හොඳටම මම මගෙන් මේ අපි බැංක්ස් වලදී වැඩ කරනකොට අහු වෙනවනේ මගේ කස්ටමර්ස් ලාගේ ඉන්නවා චයිනා වල වෙනම ඒජන්ට්ස් දාලා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ Chinese ladies, gents like they are the people who will look after this customer. Right? Agents agents commission again. Then shipping registries. Shipping registries is Lloyd's shipping registries. They are the people who will have a data bank on ships. When the ship was built, when the ship was first birthed, right? Then how many years, age, have they met with an other damages, fire, ship pedigree shipping registries. It's maintained by London Lloyd's. Okay. In simple, if you are booking a ship, we'll have to see whether that carrying ship is seaworthy. Mudi under pulan ship ekak balanda wenawa apita. The මේ දවස්වල බැලුවොත් එම express pearl, go to Google and see express shipping registries වලට ගිහලා express pearl ගහලා බලන්න whether it's seaworthy or not. ඒක අපිට කිලෝමීටර් 79කට යන් ගිලා බැලලා අපේ මුදේ නේද? It is not seaworthy, right? ඒව අපිට ඔක්කොම check කරන්න පුළුවන්. Before we put the goods into a ship, you have to have these details. Chamber of Commerce, Vanijya Mandala, Chamber of Commerce. They are the people who issue certificate of origin, right? Banks, very important party. They are the people who are participating in most trade transactions. To some extent, from full finance to the processing of simple remittances. And sometimes, most of the time, people will come to the bank and ask for full finance, right? Or sometimes, if it is advance payment, to do the simple remittances, right? So banks and most of the customers, they think the banks are the best people and the experts on advising the customers. All right. There is a mismatch between the buyer and seller always with their goals, right? You think I'm teaching trade in a very simple method, right? Where more simple is the detail making you can write your answers easily, right? I don't want to teach you in big words, big language. That's what I have learned through my teaching methods. Always simple. And I always mix my presentations with stories. Because stories are the ones which will be in your mind, which you can remember for years and years. Stories. අපි පොඩි කාලේ අහපු කතන්දර ආච්චිලාගෙන් සීලාගෙන් අහපු කතන්දර අපිට තාම මතකයි once upon a time ඒවා. දැන් පාඩම් කරන.
So I have a question.
Yeah. Yes, ask.
So how about insurance company?
Insurance
as an agent,
company?
They are.
No. Insurance companies also you can take it as a party to a transaction. අපිට මිස්ලා දුන්නද ඉන්ෂුරන්ස්?
ඔව් තිබ්බේ නැහැ සර්.
නෑ තිබ්බේ නැහැ. ඒක දාගන්න ඕන. ඒක ලියා ගන්න. Very good. Thank you very much. පුතේ what's your name පුතා?
Indika again sir.
Indika again. Indika, thank you so much Indika. Thank you. අන්න බලන්න ඔච්චර ඉන්දිකගේ question එකෙන් අනිත් අය ඔක්කොටම ක්ෂතක් වුණාම මම ඕකනේ මුලදීම කිව්වේ. Ask questions කියලා. right? මේක මට මිස් වෙනවා. insurance. right? දැන් මේකට තව එකක් දාගන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් අපි තව ටිකක් බලමු. What about lawyers? Lawyers are also a party to the contract. I mean, party to international trade. Why? Not to fight the case, but they are the people who will prepare the contract. They are the people who will prepare the contract. Because this is a legal document. You and me can't do that. Even though I am a lecturer and experienced banker, but I can't do the contract. Contract is a specialized job. It will be done by the.
So there is a local. So there is a local agent for shipping company also.
You can use agents under shipping agents also, right? Who represent either the buyer or seller or any other institution, right? Shipping companies, shipping registries, the shipping company, the shipping company, they are the people who will issue. Most of the shipping companies, almost all the shipping companies, they have local agents, right? And a details, I'm just going to give you just the parties involved in international trade, right? But you can put insurance and lawyers also. Okay, coming back to the goals of the buyer and the seller, right? It's a human nature. If you buy something from somebody, or if you borrow some money from one of your friends, promising him that you will repay the loan with your next salary, right? Next salary. On the salary day, what is your strategy? Not to come to the office. Arbinia balangin no ne salary ke ganna meya enakang, right? Not to come to the office. And you want to have another negotiation with that guy. Majang mega mara upset එක මට ප්‍රශ්න ගොඩක් වුණා. අච්චිත් මලා යස්රේ සියත් මලා මම පොඩ්ඩක් හිරවුණා. මට තව මාස දෙකක් දෙන්න මම pay කරන්න. That you want to drag, you want to pay later. That's a human nature, right? The same thing here, right? There's a mismatch between the buyer and the seller's goals. When do you want to get paid? That is the $1 million question. The exporter is having. When I am going to get the money? I don't know when this guy is going to pay me. That's his problem. Now, he wants the money now, right? But the buyer, when do buyers want to pay? Buyer late. He wants to drag. He wants to pay later. So this is that. Always we have these objectives of the parties to a transaction. The buyer's objectives are contract fulfillment, to receive the correct quantity and quality of the goods purchased, right? To receive in a timely manner and at the correct place, right? To receive in a timely manner and at the correct place. They want to have it in the timely manner at the correct place. What do you mean by that? Now, I'll give you an example. Okay, if a garment factory here in Sri Lanka, if they are supplying winter clothes to a buyer in UK, winter clothes to a buyer in UK, and the UK buyer wants to have it in a timely manner and the correct place. They want the winter clothes to be received at London London, and timely manner. At least 1 month before the winter. At least 1 month before the winter. Right? So, agree. And by the time our guy sends winter clothes, winter is over and then now the summer is there. Now, can they sell that winter clothes? No, they can't sell it. Right? And the other thing, we have asked them to, they wanted us to send the goods to London port. We have sent to Liverpool port. දෙකම එල්ලකනේ ඒ වගේ වැඩ කරනවා අපේ මිනිස්සු right ලන්ඩන් මොකද ලිවර්පූල් මොකද ඒකත් එංගලන්තෙමනේ but from Liverpool to London there's a සෑහෙන දුරක් තියෙනවා ඉතින් කොහොමද ඒගොල්ලෝ ආපහු ට්‍රාන්ස්පෝර්ට් කරගෙන එන්න ඕන additional burden for them right so that is the buyer's objective. So always to have it the way they want it. Assurance that he does not have to pay the seller until he is certain that the seller has fulfilled his obligations. Drag until the seller has fulfilled this obligation, he doesn't want to pay. The credit part. Buyer wants to manage the cash flow with the possibility of obtaining bank finance. To manage his cash flow, he wants to obtain bank finance, right? And then, or defer payment as long as possible. Defer payment as long as possible. Then the convenience. The buyer and the seller always like to use an intervening third party in whom both buyer and seller have confidence. What do you think? Who should be this intervening third party? Both buyer and seller have confidence.
Mostly the banks.
Banks. Banks is a reply. Right? What the vela atne de. Nathai apide job beko, uganda job beko. Me apide job එක තියෙන්නේ මේ වගේ concept දාලා එවිලා තියෙන හින්දානේ. Right. The seller's objectives. The seller's objectives are contract fulfillment. Right? Then under contract fulfillment, assurance that he will be paid in full within the agreed time limit. That's what he wants. He doesn't want bits and pieces. He wants the full amount. Right? To deliver the contracted goods or services as quickly as possible. To deliver the contracted goods or services as quickly as possible. The moment sellers objective to manufacture, dispatch, wash his hand. Make a drag character Indian neck, at a party. Right? Make him that. He wants to send it as early as possible. Prompt payment. He wants a prompt payment on completion of his contractual obligations. We discussed that. And to receive payment of the correct amount and in the correct currency. Very important. Correct amount and the correct currency. Now, these days, we all talk about Adude Pandarat Mama 6:30. TV එක උදේ පාන්දර මං ආගෙන හිටියා. දැන් ඔක්කොම එන්න මේ payments කරගන්න අපිට foreign currency නැහැ කියලා. Foreign currency නැහැ කියලා අපේ එංගලන්තෙන් බඩු අරගෙන is it all right for us to pay in rupees? Can we pay in rupees, local rupees? බෑනේ. It has to be either in dollars or sterling as per the agreement. Right? So this is the seller's objectives. Convenience. The convenience of receiving payment at his own bank or through a bank in his own country. Right? Okay. Now we'll take a small break. After that, we'll talk about the PESTEL model of external factors faced in international trade markets. Right? Okay. 10:20, sharp 10:30, 10 minutes, we'll be back. Hello, we are back. Right. Shall we start the session?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Some have left after the break, I think. Permanent break and 10 minutes break, yeah. Looks like some are missing, but it is up to them. Okay. You can see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. Now we are going to discuss about the external factors faced in international trade markets. Right? Before the buyer and seller come into an agreement to either to import goods or to export certain goods to some other country, you have to study these external factors which will face in the international trade market. Right? There are so many factors, but basically we'll categorize into a small segment. Right? We call it PESTEL model. We call it PESTEL model, right, of these external factors. As I have mentioned here, the political, the economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal. The first letters will give you PESTEL, right? PESTEL kila mata tiyagattam, oganda politically yagane yanne pulo, right? Political, economic, social, technological, environment, and legal. Right? Now we'll discuss in detail what is this. These what sort of factors are these? Right? The political. To what extent are the countries influenced by multilateral or bilateral agreement? We discuss about multilateral and bilateral agreement. Right? So, to what extent are the countries influenced? So we'll have to see. If we are planning to export certain things to India, right? So you have to see whether India is having a multilateral or bilateral agreement with some other country for the same product, right? If so, then India will have a better advantage of doing business with that particular country, right? If you say garments, if India is having a bilateral agreement with Vietnam regarding the garments or with Bangladesh, right? So we'll have to compete with that. So we'll have to see those things before we start sending the goods or start doing business with some other country. Any historical relationship between the countries that would benefit or hinder the relationships, right? If you have historical relationship with certain countries, that will also support, right? Or it can go against that also. It can hinder the relationship. What is the political regime of the country? That also depends, right? If the political regime is favorable to us, then it's a different question. Does the domestic country have any sanctions in place with the country where the business wishes to trade? Right? Does the domestic country, if you say Germany and Iran, Germany wants to import oil from Iran. Germany wants to import oil from Iran. Now, Iran, do they have any sanctions in place? Do they have any sanctions in place, Iran? Yes, they have.
Yes.
They have UN as well as US sanctions. UN is United Nations sanctions as well as United States sanctions, right? So when you are doing business with such a country, then you have to be careful, because sometimes your money will get freezed. If you do the business in dollars, your money will get freeze, right? We are also having the same problem. If you are opening LCs to bring down oil from Iran, then we have to pay them in dollars, isn't it? If you open the LC in dollars, then we have to pay them in dollars. So if you are paying them in dollars, the dollars will get will have to get cleared through US New York market, through the New York market. When the dollar goes to New York market, when the New York market sees that these dollars are to be repatriated to Iran, right, as a payment of oil supplied to Sri Lanka, they will freeze the money. They will freeze the money because of their sanctions. Then we have to find some other way. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට oil වැඩි වෙලා කියන්නේ කොහෙන්ද? සිංගප්පූරුවේ. oil flat rate එක එන්නේ සිංගප්පූරු. තමයි කෝට් කරන්නේ. සිංගප්පූරු එහෙන් අරගෙන පාන්නෙත් නෑ. ඒගොල්ලෝ කොහොම හරි ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ships වල ඒගොල්ලෝ අරගෙන අපිට අල්ල කරනවා. They are the intermediary party, right? If UN US sanctions are not there, the oil prices as at the moment will come down drastically. Well, those superpowers are the people who are creating these issues, right? I'm sorry, මං උගන්නද්දි ටිකක් critically අපි analyze කරනවා, but this critical analysis is important to understand. Because otherwise, I don't like students just to listen to me like parrots. You have to think rationally, right? You have to think rationally and then discuss and understand what is happening, right? Okay. Economic. Is a country affected by high level of industrial growth? Right? What is the impact of currency fluctuations between two currencies? Sri Lanka maganda. මේවට උදාහරණයක් ශ්‍රී ලංකාව ඔළුවේ තියාගත්තට පස්සේ උගන්න මේකට උත්තර හොයාගන්න පුළුවන්. Right? Is the country affected by high level of industrial growth? Good name, right? What is the impact of currency fluctuation between two currencies? Dollar Sri Lanka rupees. You can see how it is fluctuating, right? Do the two currencies share the same? Do the two countries share the same currency, or their currencies pegged? European market, European countries, they use the same currency. What is it?
Euro.
Euro. They use euro. So therefore, there's no exchange losses, right? Or currency is pegged. What do you mean by currency is pegged? Currency is pegged. in this class, I can rang panga mang dam na lamai ekasi gana kinna nang ekana tin vidyak mane. Are there any students during your school days that you are a Boy Scout or Girl Guide? Innova lamai innova neda? Boy Scout or Girl Guide innova nadda? Nathi wenna nam bෑ. Scouting අපි ඉස්කෝලේ කාලේ කරනවාමනේ. Girl Guide නුත් පිරිමි ළමයින්ටත් විතර Girl Guides ලා ඉන්නවා. එක්කෙනෙක් වන්න නැද්ද? එක්කෙනෙක් වන්නේ? කිසිම කෙනෙක් නැද්ද? පුදුමයි. Right? Okay. Now, what do you mean by Girl Guides la scouting කරානම් ඔයගොල්ලෝ camping කරලා දෙනවා. Camps ගියාම you put up the tent. Right? අපි නම් ඉස්කෝලේ කාලේ කරනවා. ඒතර tent එක ගෙවුවාම you have the tent like this, right? ගෙම tent එක කරලා ඊට පස්සේ අපි අර ලණු වලින් මෙහෙම ඇදලා ගහනවා පෙග් එකක්. මේකත් ඇදලා මෙතන පෙග් එකක් කරනවා. මේ වගේ පෙග්ස් වලින් තමයි ටෙන්ට් එක තියෙන්නේ. පෙග්ස් වලින් ගහලා තමයි ටෙන්ට් එක මෙතන තියලා තියෙන්නේ. right? එතකොට මේ පෙග්ස් එකක්වත් ගැලවුණොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේ පෙග්ස් එකක්වත් ගැලවුණොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ? ටෙන්ට් එක වැටෙනවා. ටෙන්ට් එකේ බැලන්ස් එක යනවා. ටෙන්ට් එක වැටෙනවා. right? ඒ වගේ තමයි pegging යන්නේ. Once you pegged, right? Once you pegged, it is static. The moment you release the peg, it will collapse. Right? Up to a certain extent, in Sri Lanka, I experienced this pegging somewhere in 2008, 2009, 2007, 8, 9 ඔය කාලේ ඩොලර් එකට අපේ peg වෙලා තිබුණා ටික කාලයක් during the final stage of war. Your country wanted to import arms, ammunitions, warships, then planes, helicopters. ඔක්කොම ගත්තානේ. යන්නකොට මේ කාලේ වගේ වුණා නම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? If we allow the dollar to determine based on the demand and supply, it will end up with 120 or 130. But during those 1 or 2 years, I can remember, dollar was about 106, 108 Uganda. After the war was ended in 2009, 2010 වෙනකොට 2011 වෙනකොට මේගොල්ලෝ pegging එක ගෙලෙවුව ගමන් the dollar went up to from 108 to 110 overnight. Normally යන්නේ few basis points මේක එකපාරට ගියා. Then another 1 week it went up to 115. I can still remember I was with HSBC Bank or with Cardiff Bank. I call him right. මගේ යාළුවෝ customers ලා call Karagahana, what is going to happen, what is going to happen, importers, because it was going, they have opened them, by the time they opened their LCs, it was 108. Within 2 weeks, it went up to 120, 12 rupees a dollar, right? They have done the costing, everything has gone for 6, right? But this pegging, some countries, they peg their currencies. They peg their currencies. After leaving Standard Chartered in 97, I joined HSBC and I was working overseas for about 10 years, right? During that period, and I came back to Sri Lanka in 2007 after 10 years. All 10 years, UAE dirham was pegged to dollars. Even now, it was 3.66. When I first joined HSBC, it was 3.66 dollar to dirham. And 2007 also 3.66. This pegged, right? It's exchange fluctuations where business karaganda lazy. Level of inflation between two countries.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Is it the fixed exchange rate for its currency?
It is not a. It is almost similar to a fixed exchange rate. Fixed exchange rate, right? Because we have pegged the currencies, but not for all. The fixed exchange rate can for all currencies. This is only for a specific currency, dollars, US dollars, right? Okay. For US dollars, they have pegged. Other currencies are fluctuating based on the demand and supply, right? That's how they were managing the economy there. Level of inflation between two countries, another factor. Employment level of two countries, right? Then social factor. Are there any religious or cultural differences? You have to be careful when you are dealing with other countries. If you are dealing with Middle East countries, Saudi Arabia, some countries, not Dubai, but especially Saudi Arabia and all, I mean, you have to be very, very careful with their religious and cultural standing, right? Certain meat products, it's prohibited. We call it haram. Haram no. You can't export, you can't import, right? No, sorry, export, you can't import those things to the particular country. It's against their religion, right? So you have to think about those factors. Will language be a barrier? Will language be a barrier? Are negotiation styles between two countries different, right? Language be a barrier? About 25, 30 years back, yes, there was, language was a barrier when we were doing business with China. Chinese guys, most of the time, they were talking in Chinese language. They cannot understand English, right? But not now. Now they are very much better than us. They have changed, right? Our negotiation styles between two countries different. Negotiation styles in some Arabic countries, it's an inherent thing, the way they argue, the way they negotiate. We think they are trying to fight with us. No, that's their style, right? A style like a giving so we have to know about those factors before we start the negotiations, right? Technological, how can a company protect copyright or intellectual property rights? Does a country have certain safety standard that must be adhered to, right? Environmental, some countries have some countries demand that the goods they consume are produced in an environmentally friendly manner. Organic food right? Policies of the countries on climatic change and global warming. Certain banks, certain countries, they don't open LCs for logs. LOGS, logs. Logs can be Lee quota. Lee quota are in LCs, Lee quota import LCs are in there. Why? HSBC Bank, they do. Right? Here also they say when you cut trees, logs in the trees, when you cut trees, that will affect the global warming, and that will change the climatic changes. So because of that, we are not supporting any events that will affect climate change and global warming. So therefore, they are not allowing HSBC banks to open LCs to import logs. Right? Any policies on protecting the environment? There logs import there's no point of going to HSBC. Right? Well, they are not opening LCs. These factors you have to study before you finalize the business. Any policies on protecting the environment? What are the policies on child labor? Child labor. These people had this issue for several years, China. Child labor, right? Then the legal, different laws between countries. Employment laws of certain countries, right? Minimum wage or number of hours worked. All those things you have to be, you have to study before you enter into a contract, right? Then bank's role as a trustworthy third party or intermediary between buyer and seller. Just go through it. I don't want to go in detail. You can read the handout, because we have discussed all these things here and there in the morning session, right? Why the people are coming to banks are, bank is a financial institution, right? Therefore, they think that the banks have the necessary expertise in handling international trade transactions. Now, I'm sure I'm telling in the last more than 10 years postgraduate classes. I told you, most of the branch managers, assistant managers are attending these classes to do the postgraduate exam. It's good for their career. But one thing is missing, remote branches like then Ampara branches, Katragama branch, Eminat Beliat, Univagi, at the Petival, Panel, Udigampala, Wagi, remote areas, branches. Api branch, Hari, when I get there, Colombo, Malabi, Atrugiri, Batramaluna, Mandakalatina, because I am visiting those branches, right? The people come to the bank, thinking that we are the experts and we are the people whom they can look for answers to their questions. If you say, oh, sorry, can you please wait for 5 minutes? I'll ask my manager and come. Then you run to the manager's cubicle and ask manager, coming back, මැනේජර් දන්නෙත් නැහැ. මැනේජර් කෙනා පොඩ්ඩක් අහලා බලන්න හෙඩ් ඔෆිස් එකේ ට්‍රේඩ් එකකින් අහන්නේ අහවල් එක්කෙනාගෙන් අහන්නේ. එතකොට මේගොල්ලෝ ඇවිල්ලා අහවල් එක්කෙනාට කෝල් කරනවා. කෝල් කරලා ඔක්කොම කරනකොට කස්ටමර් බලන් ඉන්නවා. දැන් මම වගේ කස්ටමර් කෙනෙක් නම් බලන් ඉන්නවා හොඳට. බලන් ඉඳලා අර මනුස්සයෙන් අහනවා මිස් ඔයා දන්නේ නැද්ද? ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ මැනේජර් දන්නේ නැද්ද මේ කොහොමද මේක ඔපරේෂන් එක වෙන්නේ කියලා? Now he has lost the confidence of that guy. Right? ඒක තමයි මම කියන්නේ when it comes to a financial institution, even the people in the front line, I mean, who are dealing with the customers, should know about these things. At least the basics. එතකොට අල්ලගෙන explain කරලා තව explanations ඕන පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්න මම කරලා දෙන්නම් කියලා කරලා දෙන්න පුළුවන්. Right? But you should not tell them, sorry, I don't know. ඒක හොඳ නැහැ. Right? Then people are coming for the facilities, money. The bank is able to supply trade information. What do you mean by trade and credit information? Which is very important to both buyer and seller. What is trade and credit information? When you are dealing with an unknown party in a different country, you can ask your bankers to do a search on that particular customer in UK. That customer is doing business with National Westminster Bank, Liverpool. National Westminster Bank, Liverpool. So he gives all his details, bank account number and everything. Then through your bank, you can ask one of your correspondent banks or to that particular bank, you can send a swift message asking for the credit information of that particular customer. Whether they are maintaining their account in a satisfactory manner or whatever. Right? ඒක හරි important. ගොඩක් අපේ කට්ටිය business කරනවා without taking the credit information, trade and credit information. Right? The bank is ready to provide finance to help buyer and seller to fulfill their commercial obligations. Types of finance. Types of finance. The banks can finance the exporters by pre-shipment finance, and post-shipment finance. What do you mean by pre-shipment finance and post-shipment finance? Again, I'll try to explain to you. There is an exporter, one of their customers. He is manufacturing shoes and ladies' handbags. Right? Your customer. He is manufacturing shoes and handbags. Right? This guy is exporting this stuff to a buyer in Italy. Buyer in Italy. Right? He is exporting this stuff to a buyer in Italy. Now, this guy, to manufacture the goods, he needs certain items as a raw material. Those raw materials, right, he will export, right? These raw materials will say leather. What else? Shoes, sword. Handbags.
Wool.
Zips. Zip buttons. All these things, the raw materials, this guy wants to import. He has to import. Right? He has to import. And once he receives the raw materials, he will take 1 month for the production. 1 month for the production. Right? Now, before the finish of the production, before finishing the manufacturing, whatever the cost involved is pre-shipment. Whatever the cost involved is pre-shipment. Right? Before the shipment, he needs facilities for the pre-shipment finance. Pre-shipment financing facilities he needs. Right? Once he export, they will get the money in 60 days. Right? Export in 60 days. They will get the money, DA 60 days. Now, until 60 days, he will not get the money. But he needs money to settle these loans. All these pre-shipment loans has to be settled with the proceeds of the export. So he needs money. So what he is going to do is he is going to discount his export bills. That is what you call post-shipment. After you ship, post-shipment. Post-shipment finance. So the banks have to give pre-shipment financing as well as post-shipment financing to the customers. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Explain. Sometimes you can just cover these expenses if you're running an overdraft. If there's an overdraft facility, you can cover overdraft local amounts, then we have to have specific pre-shipment or post-shipment financing. Right? Then the bank can finance importers. The bank can finance importers. The importers are, this guy is an importer as well as exporter. He is playing a dual role. He has to import the raw material. Right? So when he imports, this guy doesn't have any money. Because for him to get the money, he has to produce the goods and then to export it and to receive the funds after 60 days. Within 1 month, within 2 months, 3 months, so 4 months, the make produce manufacturing then you have to finance the imports. Right? You can give import loans. You can give import loans. Right? Or just running an overdraft. So that is why people are coming to the banks. Right? That is why we are having our job. මිනිස්සුන්ගේ අතේ සල්ලි තියාගෙන බිස්නස් කරා නම් එහෙම අපිට ජොබ් එකකුත් නැහැ. අපි අද ගෙදර එන. නේද මිනිස්සු එන හින්දානේ මේ අපි මිනිස්සුන්ව සුබ්‍රා කන්නේ බැංකුවලින් නේ. Right? Okay. සමහර loans වල එහෙම දෙනකොට දීලා දැන් මේ දවස්වල කොවිඩ් කාලේ අරමයා හිර වෙලා ඔක්කොම කරලා ඉන්නකොට ඒකයි මම ළමයින්ට කියන්නේ අයියෙන් විදුල කොටලා වහිනකොට දොට්ටවත් බහින්න එපා පරිස්සම් වෙන්න ඕන මොකද මිනිස්සු අපිට කියන නම්මුන්ට නම් එන ගහන්න ඕනේ කියලා කියනවනේ මම දැන් අනාථ වෙලා ඉන්නේ කියලා එහෙමද කියන්නේ ඒකද පරිස්සමෙන් වැටි කරගෙන යන්න okay related publications of the International Chamber of Commerce related publications of the International Chamber of Commerce right there are certain publications in the International Chamber of Commerce, right? International Chamber of Commerce are the people who control entire international trade, who governs and who issues guidelines to international trade in the world. Right? The entire LC operations is governed by UCP 600. The latest publication is UCP 600, right? Then to මේව මතක තියාගන්න හෙට නිදිනකොට මේව කටපාඩම් කරගන්න වෙනවා. Right? Then collection will be by URC, Uniform Rules for Collection. URC 522. Right? Next week, make the normal 26 articles you have to study. Right? URR, Uniform Rules for Bank-to-Bank Reimbursement. Right? Make all my touch karna vitarai. Uganda URR again. Tikak vidrak karna whether me ඔක්කොම අර්ධ ගත්ත එක කාලේ මදි කරන්න. Forget about ISBP and ISB 98. The top two is important. Right? Now, with that, I have covered the introduction. Now, let's see international trade data of Sri Lanka during last 2-3 years. I couldn't get 2020 figures, right? The latest I got was 2018, but not much of a difference, right? Trade deficit in 2018 widened substantially, reflecting the increase in import expenditure by 50.7, outspacing the 22.4 growth in export earnings. We have seen a trade export growth in 2018 by how much? 22.4% growth. But our trade balance has widened because against that growth 22.4, our imports have increased by 50.7. That means we had to pay more money out of Sri Lanka. The more money has gone out of Sri Lanka rather than getting into the country. And all our politicians, when they are giving talks, right? Look talks, and then they are. I can still remember the top two guys, top 2-3 guys. They were talking and telling. You see, during this year, our exports have increased by 22.4%. යටින් ස්ටේජ් එක යටින් නෝ විසිලයක් ගහලා බල්ටිකුත් ගහලා අපුඩිත් ගහනවා. But they never talk about the import expenditure. Right? මේවා තමයි manipulate කරන්නේ මේ figures. Right? And really speaking, මේ 22.4 growth එක due to what? Can somebody tell me? අපේ තේ නිෂ්පාදනය වැඩි වුණාද? පොල් නිෂ්පාදනය වැඩි වුණාද? රබර් වැඩි වුණාද? කොහෙන්ද වැඩි වුණේ? කොහොමද ඒතර මේ 22.4 growth එකක් ආවේ?
Tourism.
ඈ?
Tourism.
නෑ tourism නෙමෙයි. We are talking about the rupee values now. Rupee income. කොහෙන්ද වැඩිලා තියෙන්නේ?
exchange gain.
Exchange rate. You're perfectly correct. ඉතින් ඕක අනේ අර ගමේ ඉන්න සිරිපාටවත් සිමෙන් අයියටවත් තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ නේ. කාන අප්පුඩිය. ලොක්කා කිව්ව ගමන්. මේ exchange rate වැඩිලා තමයි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. Right? Direction of trade. Major trading partners in 2018. Right? India, Singapore, USA. I have given these figures, right? Exports by commodities, imports by commodities. I have just given these to you for your information. Exports destinations, UK 11%, Belgium 5%, Germany 5%, European Union 13%, USA 20%. Okay, 24 20. That shows our main trading partner or our main export partner is USA. ඉතින් අපිට පුළුවන් USA තරහ කරගෙන European Union එක තරහ කරගෙන අපිට මෙහෙ ඉන්න පුළුවන්. These are the things we have to analyze. මම මේ figures දෙන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ම analyze කරගන්න. Right? European Union අපි කියනවා ඒගොල්ලෝ කියනවා ජිනීවා වල මේවා දාන්න ඕනේ මේ restrictions අපිට දානවා. අපි කියනවා අපි who cares? We don't care. එහෙම ඉන්න පුළුවන්ද අපිට බෑ. එහෙම ඉන්න බෑ. මොකද අපි we are depending on them. ඒගොල්ලෝ නැවතුත් එහෙම මොනවාද GSP plus නැවතුත් මොනවද වෙන්නේ? We will lose our business, right? USA 20%, and we are talking about, some of our guys are talking about once we come to power, we are going to remove the plugs of USA. Where USA plug galwannada me 20-24% api USA theka business karandi, right? These are all politics and political talks, but when you analyze, you can see how we should plan out our strategies, right? Imports. China වලට වැඩිය තාමත් ඒ දවස්වල තාමත් වැඩි India. Singapore is also 10%. Well, Singapore 10% can Singapore good there because of they are the intermediary party, right? So they we are importing from Singapore, right? Right. Okay. Now I think I have discussed with you the introduction to international trade. Now I'm going to check your knowledge. Right? Classes knowledge check then I can get some understanding whether you got the point or not. Right? Okay. Let's give you answers to this. Right? After 12:30, I have another class from 1 to 3. Right? Mage වයසත් එක්ක සලකලා මට අනුකම්පා කරලා මාව වැඩි වෙහසක් නැතුව දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ උත්තර දෙන්න. Right? What are the subheadings of Pestel model?
political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal.
Legal. Very good. Very good. Others also, I think, that political,
Economic,
political, economic, social, technological, environment, and legal.
legal,
Right? Name 5 information included in a sales contract.
currency,
Seller, buyer,
Seller, buyer, currency,
Currency.
consideration,
Pardon?
consideration,
I'm sorry, that.
Terms and conditions.
Terms and conditions, okay. අවශ්‍යම එක කතා කළේ නෑ.
Payment settlement.
consideration,
නෑ consideration නෙමෙයි ඔය.
product or service.
Yes, product or service or goods. Description of goods. Again, right? Like that. You can name
Method of settlement.
5 information. Right. What do you think? මට උත්තර දුන්නේ නැති අයටත් මේක උත්තර දෙන්න පුළුවන්ද? හිතෙන් හරි. පුළුවන් නේ? What makes a valid contract? Name 3 of those.
There must be an offer.
Offer.
offer,
And
acceptance,
acceptance.
No, before acceptance, offer sometimes.
count offer,
Offer and consideration.
No, offer,
Offer count
offer,
maybe.
count offer, and then the acceptance.
acceptance,
Acceptance.
Count offer and the acceptance. This one, according to Ricardo, the country will have a comparative advantage in give me the answer. According to Ricardo, that is comparative advantage really. The country will have a comparative advantage in A, B, C, or D. ඔගලන්ගේ final paper එකේ I have එකක් මම ඔයගලන්ට කියන්නම්. I have මේ පාරින් නම් මම change කළා මේ paper එකේ මොකද ඒකට කියන්නේ plan එක questions ටික. All these days for postgraduate we just gave theory and Hallelian questions, right? What I thought was, since we have changed our strategy of learning, right? We are not having a open environment; it's a closed environment, right? And now no physical contacts. ළමයින්ගේ පැත්තෙන් මම පොඩ්ඩක් බලන්න එපා. ළමයින්ට give and take policy එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. මම දන්නේ අනිත් papers කොහොම කරයිද කියලා. මගේ paper එක මම ඔයගලන්ට දෙන්නේ එක question එකක් multiple choice. One question 20 marks will be 10 multiple choice questions. Sometimes it's easy for you people because whatever you write, I know you people are making a mess out of it when you are writing. You are not writing to the point, no? You are deviating from the point. අපේ අර කැම්පස් එකේ අපි කියන්නේ හොද මඩේ ගහනවා කියලා. ඒ වගේ තමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ කියන්නේ. එකම පොයින්ට් එකේ එහාට කරකවනවා මෙහාට කරකවනවා එන්න අපිට අහු වෙනවා ටක් ගාලා මෙයා දන්නේ නැතුව මේ කරකවන්නේ කියලා. එතකොට අපි ලකුණු 5ක් ලකුණු 10ක් දෙනවා නම් ඕක ලකුණු 2යි 3යි දෙන්නේ. එකම පොයින්ට් එකේ කරකවන්නේ හැබැයි පිටක් ලියලා. ඊට වඩා හොඳයි මේකේ to the point if you know the thing you can score. දේශයෙන්ම ලකුණු 20න් 14ක් විතර නම් ගන්න පුළුවන්. හරියට කළොත්. ඒකෙන්ද අපි එක question එකක් දෙනවා multiple choice, but I am not going to make it compulsory. It is up to you. Choice is yours. Right? ඒකෙන්ද මේ multiple choice questions study කරන්න. Multiple choice questions easy නෑ. If you have studied, it is very easy. If you have not studied, it is not easy. Most of the answers, all 4 answers are very close, right? You have the experience now. You people have done it during school career, right? What is the answer for this one? A, B, C, or D?
C.
C. B. කවුද කිව්වේ? සායක කියන තායකක් කිව්වා.
B.
B. ඒ කියන්නේ second answer again.
Second answer.
Second answer. B. Okay. Now we have 2 answers. One said C, one said B. What about others? Girls like that thing?
C is the answer.
C is the answer. Girls like that thing?
C is the answer.
C.
The correct answer is B.
C.
B, not C. Import competing industries. That is why Ricardo was talking. Industries that sell to domestic and foreign buyers, economy. Right? They are talking about in the import competing industries. Matakada? Cars, wheat, question එකක් බලන්න. ඒ example එක අරගෙන. ගෙදර ගිහලා ගෙදරදී මේක කරනකොට පස්සේ ආයෙත් කල්පනා කරලා බලන්න සර් කිව්ව එක ඇත්තද කියලා. Answer is B. Right? Nations conduct international trade because A, some nations prefer to produce one thing while others produce one thing. B, resources are not equally distributed among the trading nations. Trade enhances opportunities to accumulate profits. D, interest rates are not identical in all trading nations. What is the answer? Lazy.
B.
Answer is B. B. Resources are not equally distributed among all trading nations.
Answer B.
Answer B. B. Right there? Answer B. Second, which of the following is a determinant of trade? Which of the following is a determinant of trade? Again, in Uganda, then they belong. It's a common sense.
D.
D can number 4 there.
Answer D, number 4.
Number 4.
Number 4.
Yes.
D is the answer. D.
Yeah, 4. Egan lazy. Which of the following is a determinant of trade? Taste the corner. Balapano, per capita income and technological changes. Therefore, the answer is all of the above. Right? Very good. According to the theory of comparative advantage, which of the following is not a reason why countries trade? Not a reason.
Answer D.
Answer D.
D is the answer.
Answer D.
Answer A, B, C or D?
D.
D. D can 4, correct?
Answer D.
Exports.
D.
Export give a country a political advantage over other countries.
The fourth one, yes.
Yes, correct. Right, okay, not bad. What do you think? Interesting, right? Okay. Then there's another session I want to do. We discuss about introduction to international trade, right? Now I want to discuss with you, since are there any guys in the class who are working in international trade department in our respective banks? Indona nede. Already know they can. Already can you know the. But asai ahande ka namak. Right? Okay. Since majority of you are newcomers for this alien subject, right? International trade. I thought better to share with you certain documents used in import and export procedures. Majority of you may not have may not have seen these documents. But I advise you from today onwards, if you get an opportunity to get these samples, even if you are working in a branch in Kirama or if you are working in a branch in Betiklo, doesn't matter. In your head office, imports department, export department, right, trade department, if you get a contact, ask them to send some photocopies of 1 or 2 documents, a BL copy, right, Yahweh bill copy, right. Try to collect those things. They can cut the figures and the names and then send you the photocopy by internal courier, right? Then at least you will get to know about those documents, right? Try to get those things and keep it with you and study what are those documents and how the exporter prepares those documents, right? Okay. Normally, the documents seen in collection and international trade is financial documents. When it comes to financial documents, there are 2 types of financial documents. One is bills of exchange. The second one is promissory note. Right? Financial document, bills of exchange, and the promissory note. Those are the financial documents. Now, financial documents are very important because if you want to, if you are planning to go for litigation, that means you want to file a case, court case, then you have to argue on the financial document. Financial document is the evidence, right? Then commercial documents. Under commercial documents, commercial invoice, packing list, certificate of origin, inspection certificate, like that. Then insurance documents, right? Because always international trade, insurance is a must. Transport document, that's for the transport, right? Okay. We talk about the bill of exchange, right? Bill of exchange, that's a financial document. Bill of exchange what we are using today, right? Still, it is governed by Bill of Exchange Act of 1882 UK. මේ සුද්දගේ කාලේ කෝපි කාලේ සුද්දගේ කාලේ සුද්ද අපිට දීපු Bill of Exchange Act එකේ තමයි අපි මේ amendments revisions කර යන්නේ. Bill of Exchange Act 1882 of UK. UK is also using the same act. Even our commercial law is English law again. But subsequently there were certain amendments in 1927, then 1951, okay, there were certain amendments, right? But the base is 1882 UK Bill of Exchange Act, right? When it comes to a definition of Bill of Exchange, a Bill of Exchange is an unconditional order in writing. Unconditional order in writing, right? Addressed by one person. Addressed by one person. That's the drawer, right? We call that person who prepares the Bill of Exchange, we call him drawer, right? අපි සිංහලෙන් කියනවා නම් අනකරු එයා තමයි අන කරන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ drawer කියන්නේ අන කරන්නේ. To another, drawee is the guy who is going to receive this thing. Drawer is the exporter, drawee is the importer. Drawee is the importer. Drawee කියන්නේ සිංහලෙන් අන ලදු. අරයා අන කරු, එයා අන ලද්දා. අන ලදු. අන ලැබෙන කෙනා. Right? Then signed by the drawer. Signed by the drawer. Right? Make a දෙපැත්තට ගිහලා ගිහලා එන්නන්න. You can see the side Bill of Exchange, right? It is issued by the drawer is United Exports Private Limited. United Export Private Limited is the drawer. And the drawee, they are demanding the money from ABC Bank Limited, Gold Road, Colombo, Sri Lanka. Right? They are demanding the money from ABC Bank. The United Exports තමයි drawer. Drawee, the bank. Right? Then signed by the drawer. Signed by United Exports. Right? Requiring the person to whom it is addressed. They request ABC Bank Limited to pay number 6, on demand or at a fixed determinable future date. On demand or at a determinable future date. දැන් මේකේ කවද්ද තියෙන්නේ? Exchange for US dollars 10,000, 30th June 2017 at site. At site. මේක දුටුවනම ගෙවන්න. Immediately. Right? A certain sum in money. A certain sum in money. Is it given here? Exchange for US dollars 10,000. In words and figures. US dollars 10,000. Right? To or to the order of a specified person, the payee, or to the bearer. Right? To or to the order of the specified person, the payee, or to the bearer. මේක තමයි site draft එක. At site. if it is a user's one, tenor is a future date, determinable future date. The make common thing. It was issued on 30th June, and they are requesting the party to pay them on 28th October 2017. Determinable future date. Is it clear? Right. The bill of exchange. A bill of exchange or draft is written order by the drawer to the drawee to pay money to the payee. Can you give me another example for a bill of exchange? Bill of exchange act
Checks.
Checks, normal checks, yes, very good. Normal checks, right? Normal checks. So again, or with the check cash, non-cash, normally, you know, Mr. Paragela. Okay, or with the another one is pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice. Now we talk about the contract. We talk about the sales contract. When we determine the sales contract, when we finalize the sales contract, the seller will send a pro forma invoice to the buyer. Pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice is an estimation. Right? Is an estimation. Estimated invoice. Pro forma. All the details for a pro forma invoice is taken from the sales contract. In simple, pro forma invoice is a summary of a very brief summary. A very brief, right? Contract. A very brief summary. Summary of sales contract. Important areas right? Quantity of goods and their value, and other important information such as weight, transportation charges, to whom, Incoterms. Incoterms Incoterms plastic anivarema deno exam right? Incoterms multiple choice deno. Plastic Incoterms right? Incoterms, the payment methods, insurance, how should be the insurance, everything is included in this pro forma invoice. And the buyer has to have the pro forma invoice signed by the seller for him to go to his bank and asking for LC, to open a LC. LC open karana pro forma invoice again important. Right? Pro forma invoice are commonly used as the basic invoices with a quotation for customers' purposes in importation. The make would the we pro forma invoice again details would the importations current. They differ from normal invoice in most being a demand or request for payment. They differ from normal invoice in not being a demand or request for payment. Pro forma invoice, we are not demanding money. We are not asking them to pay. We are just giving a brief summary of sales contract. Right? It's right under performing. Commercial invoice is a different thing. Commercial invoice is a legal document between the supplier and the buyer that clearly describes the sold goods and the value of goods. Sold goods and the value of goods. Right? This is one of the main documents used by customs in determining the customs duties. This is one of the main documents used by customs in determining the customs duties. The commercial perform invoice again a brief summary of sales contract, and this is what you are going to import. Right? For example, Hancock brand, Hancock brand briefcases. $500 pieces. 500 pieces Hancock brand briefcases. These are things, right? In the commercial invoice, this is the actual invoice, which we are going to demand the money. Commercial invoice again, 495 pieces of Hancock brand, 495 pieces. If I make it the method got to them US dollars, 20,000 here. The make it LC carry US dollars 20,000. Within the habitat, actual in US dollars 19,200. The make a 495 is an Abdullah thing. The make it the Maya Givan. Make it the Maya, it will demand can salary. Make it the Maya Givan, make it the May. Perform invoice at the May. Make it the Givan. That's a final invoice. Any questions? Right. Okay. Combined invoice. An invoice combined with certificate of origin and value. We call it combined invoice. The concealed invoice. There are various types of invoices. Keep back with concealed invoice. Concealed invoice in the exporting country, the consulate of the importing country provides a specially printed invoice. I told you that I have worked in HSBC Middle East office for about 10 years. Right? I was a regional head of trade, looking after operations of 9 countries. Right? At that time, I'm so lucky to have this practical experience. Practical experience are very, very important in trade finance. Right? I lucky to got those practical experience. Lanka may consider invoices. In those countries, before importing goods to Sri Lanka, if they are exporting goods to Sri Lanka, sometimes the Sri Lankan government might prefer to have concealed invoice. The same invoice, but what these people have to do, right? Special printed invoice, concealed invoice, which is filled by the exporter, and it will be presented to the commercial attaché of the Consul General Office for stamping and signature. Right? ඒ කියන්නේ අපි මේක හරි ඉම්පෝටන්ට් මේ ෆැක්ට් එක මට මුලදී ඔක තේරුන්නේ නැහැ මේක කරනකොට තමයි එහෙදි ගිහලා ඉන්වෝල්ව් වෙලා ඉන්නකොට තමයි අපිට ගොඩක් කරලා තේරෙන්නේ. Now if the goods are, listen to me very carefully, right? If you are going to import refrigerators, right? Refrigerators and air conditioning plant, air conditioning units to Sri Lanka from Japan to Sri Lanka, from Japan to Sri Lanka, right? Now, before they export the goods, in the LC itself, they will request consular invoice. Consular invoice. මෙයා කියන්නේ මට consular invoice එකක් තමයි මම දෙන්නේ consular invoice එක. Because at the moment, you all know, post-COVID-19 exchange control circulars, importing of refrigerators and air conditioning units is restricted in Sri Lanka. දෙන්නෙම නැහැ. එතකොට එහෙම තිබ්බනම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේ ඉන්වොයිස් එක අපිට අපේ කන්සල් ජෙනරල් ඔෆිස් එකට ගියාම ටෝකියෝ වල they should know that these two items are now prohibited in Sri Lanka. You can't export. Right? Oh, sorry, in Sri Lanka you can't import. You can't import now. මෙතින්දම අපි බ්ලොක් කරගන්නවා. අපි කන්සුලර් ඉන්වොයිස් එක සයින් කරන්නේ නැහැ. මේ items වල මෙහි ගියාම question එක එනවා. Right? Even the cars, used cars ගත්තොත් එහෙම used cars අපි ජපාන් වලින් ගේනවා. හැබැයි දැන් ගේන්න පුළුවන්ද? දැන් නවත්තලා. ඔක්කොම නවත්තලා. consular invoice එක කිව්වොත් දැන් අපි consular office එක දෙන්නේ නැහැ. used cars වලට. Clear? Right. Then legalized invoice. Legalized invoice. Then what happened? You have to pay the consular office, right? The සංගීකුත් ගන්න පුළුවන්. ගොඩක් ගන්න නෑ. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් $50 විතර වගේ ගන්නවා. Legalized invoices. The exporter's usual commercial invoice duly validated by the consent of the country of destination or by some other authorized party. Legalized invoices is a very common thing in Dubai. Right? They say all the imports, the exporter has to produce the invoice. No? All these imports, they say that all the imports coming to Dubai, they have to have legalized invoice. That means they have to go to, if the goods are coming from Sri Lanka to Dubai, right? The Sri Lankan guy, the exporter, has to go to the UAE embassy in Colombo. Colombo UAE embassy. UAE embassy, they have to get this invoice legalized. Stamp legalized. Stamp then it is the legalized invoice. For that, our exporter has to pay $50. A country like Dubai, right? Country like Dubai, They are importing everything. They don't produce anything. Nothing. So all their imports, what they do, they have make it a compulsory thing. It should be legalized invoices. So every time when you are doing exports from other countries, free money to the government of UAE, because every customer has to go to the respective embassies in those countries, UAE embassies, make a stamp කරගෙන එන්න ඕනේ. නිකම් ඉඳන්ම සල්ලි හොයනවා. අවුරුද්දකට millions. Right? කරනවා. ලංකාවෙත් කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් හොඳ වැඩක්. හැබැයි අපිට ඉතින් ඩිමාන්ඩ් කරන්න බෑ. අපි හිඟන්නනේ. හිඟන්නන්න ඩිමාන්ඩ් කරන්න බෑ. This is a copy of the sample. Commercial invoice is issued by the seller. The seller's name is Big Seller. Big Seller is issuing to the buyer, made out in the name of the applicant or the buyer, the prime buyer. Don't worry about black cake and Dalatine, Samareva, Lukuta, Janangandepa, made out in the name of applicant or first beneficiary, Meva, Mage, DIT, final exam, sorry, to the end prepare karpu slides, right? Mangugandone, Nikan try the articles taken on where they got UCP 600, sub article 18A to Eva, Mukadme first beneficiary, Mukadme applicant, Eva. Just forget about it, right? Idea is issued by the exporter, addressed to the importer, right? Then you have to have mode of shipment, ocean shipment, right? Shipment from port go to shipment to breeze port, from Dubai to Colombo, okay? Payment terms at 60 days after shipment, they have to pay, right? Description of goods, then the amount, US dollars 50,000, CPT, Breezeport, Incoterms 2010, CPT, carriage paid to is the Incoterm, right? And normally it will be signed, but it is not a must that the commercial invoice is signed, to be signed, but as a practice, it is signed, right? Then the other document is a transport document. The important thing is about 90% of world trade, about 85 to 90% of the world trade is by sea, right? Sea again, bill of lading issue. So bill of lading, it is a receipt issued by a shipping company or its authorized agents for goods shipped on board a named vessel or for goods received for shipment. So bill of lading, the moment you issue a bill of lading, it's issued by the shipping company or its agents, right? For goods shipped on board. Never about a petaway Tina Sahatikan. And a named shipboard, a named vessel. Namkarapu, vessel legata, Mibotica, Petew. Or for goods received for shipment. Or for goods received for shipment. Eminathan goods sticker, not a patanda, a bit labilla, Tino Ekla, right? When a bill of lading sample legatino, and I make it, consignee, descriptions or a small shipment from A to B, right? Okay, right? And it's a negotiable document. Negotiable document In the sense, this is the only negotiable document in transport documents, because that means they can endorse it and pass the ownership to another party. They can, like a check. Check is also a negotiable instrument. ඒ වගේ මේකත් පුළුවන් endorse කරලා you can transfer the ownership. Right? The main parties involved in a bill of lading are the shipper. Shipper is the person who sends the goods. And consignee, the person who takes delivery of the goods. The person who takes delivery of the goods. Right? Notify party, the person, usually the importer, to whom the shipping company or its agents gives notice of arrival of the goods. Carrier, otherwise main parties in a bill of lading. Shipper, no issue. Shipper can, in most cases, shipper is the seller. Consignee, in collection, consignee is the importer. When it comes to LCs, the consignee is the bank. Right? Then comes a notify party. If there's any party to be notified, when the bank receives the documents, that also we mentioned, a notify party. Right? Carrier, the person or company who has concluded a contract with the shipper for conveyance of goods, because the goods are received by carrier. Right? Make goods take out of us, then they issue the BA. And a goods upon, destination. Okay? This is how it is happening. So the main parties are shipper, then the consignee, bank or any other persons, then notified party and carrier. Right? Okay. Functions of bill of lading. Make it important, make a good multiple choice questions in a question, a common question, right? And the basic question, the basic details, functions of bill of lading, receipt for cargo. The bill of lading is a receipt for cargo. When you receive the cargo to be transported to from one place to another place, they issue that you have received the cargo. Right? So this BL act as a receipt for cargo. And evidence of contract of carriage. Evidence of contract of carriage. Evidence of contract of carriage. We never say contract of carriage here. Contract of carriage, it's an evidence. Saksha, a document of title. Legal. Document of title. Insurance documents. Why we need insurance documents in international trade? Why we need? Why we need it? Huh?
To ensure the goods.
To ensure the goods. For what? Sorry?
Minimize the risk.
Uh,
Minimize the risk.
To mitigate the risk involvement during shipment.
To mitigate the risk. So, Madi, uttare. උත්තරේ ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා කෑලි තියෙනවා දෙන්නගෙම තියෙනවා
prevent from the possible losses
possible losses why we are talking about insurance why we are talking about insurance during in international trade, we have to send the goods from one country to another. Are you agree to that? Agree for that statement?
Yes.
From one country to another. So when we are sending goods from one country to another, there can be possible losses. And then possible losses or damages, right? That is why we want to insure during the transport, right? That's why when a good sticker, since it is moving from one place to the other, right? We have to insure the goods during the transport. We cannot transit. Right? It can be under any mode. Sea vendor pulang, waterways vendor pulang, on everything, right? And then it's also extend to cover the goods during periods in storage before and after shipment. Make a very important. Insurance කියන එක නැත්නම් international trade දුවන්නත් බෑ වගේ. Right? One place to another place. We have to insure the whole thing. Right? It අමතරව the මේව හිතන්න බලන්න. If the goods are coming from UK or US, they face another issue. The express pearl එකේ මෙහෙට ආවනේ containers 80 ගණන්. දැන් ඒ customers ට සල්ලි ගෙවුවලා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ damages ඒගොල්ලන්ට කිව්වද ගිහිල්ලා වත්තල පල්ලිය මුල්ලේ පැත්තෙන් අහුල ගන්න ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ අපි unload කරලා තින්නේ container එක unload කරලා අන්න පල්ලිය වත්ත පැත්තේ තියෙනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් ජායල පැත්තට ඔන්න දැන් ගහලා තියෙනවා. අන්න එහෙන් ගිහිල්ලා container එක කලෙක්ට් කරගන්න කියලා අපි කිව්වද? නෑ. එක කස්ටමර් කෙනෙක් ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඔෆිසර්ස් වලින් එළියට බැස්සේ නෑ. කොහොමගේ goods වලට මොකද උනේ කියලා බලන්න ටීවී වල දැක්කද ගිහිල්ලා මිනිස්සු මේ ලොකු ඉම්පෝටර්ස්ලා ගිහිල්ලා මුදයිනේ බලන් ඉන්නවා මගේ කන්ටේනර් එකද එන්නේ නැත් වෙන එකක්ද කීකේ වල හිටියද? නෑ. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ air condition rooms වල ඒගොල්ලෝ හිටියා. They did only one thing. They put the claim. And I was told that all the claims have been honored. Right? Who was asked to give? When customers love. These are not bankers love. But NTB again, commercial bank again, NDB again, but calls you know. So මේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා අපේ කස්ටමර්ස්ට දැන් මොනවාද වෙන්නේ අනේ සර් කන්ටැක්ට්ස් තියෙනවනේ චුට්ටක් හොයලා බලන්න අපේ ලොකුත් කියනවා සර්ට පොඩ්ඩක් කතා කරලා බලන්න කියලා මම පරණ ගෝලෙ රයිට් ඉතින් ඒකෙදී වෙන්නේ මගේ විල insurance corporation is making my will nothing to worry if they have insured it properly we will pay. Right? the fire. ඒවට ඉන්ෂුවර් කරලා තියෙනවා. ෆයර් වලට ඉන්ෂුවර් කරලා තිබුණ නැත්නම් එහෙනම් මොකද වෙන්නේ? එහෙනම් ගන්න බෑ. මොකද මේ ෂිප් එක විනාශ වෙන්නේ ෆයර් එකකින්. ඒතකොට ඒවට ඉන්ෂුවර් කරලා නැත්නම් නෑ. The same thing applies for piracy. Same thing applies for piracy. Piracy එකද වෙන්නේ Somalian pirates ලා ඉන්නවා. අපි සමහරලාට මේක full insured goods ticker, but we are not paid the premium for piracy. Hey, $500 කියලා වැඩිපුර යනවා. ඒ ප්‍රීමියම් එකට piracy දාන්න. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ බේක් කායක බලන්න your personal vehicle fully insured කරලා තව riots and civil commotions ඒවත් අපි දානවා floods ඒවට පුඩි ගණන් තියෙනවා ඒවට නැත්නම් ඒවා අපිට we can't claim the damages, right? Piracy is also a similar thing. That is why you should know the path of the voyage. Is it crossing this area? If it is crossing that area, then we have to insure it against those perils, right? Lazy adapt me. You have to study, right? You should know your geography also. It is very, very important, right? And in most cases, they insure from warehouse to warehouse, warehouse of the seller to warehouse of the buyer, right? This is an insurance document, right? The insurance document, marine cargo insurance policy, to order of the big buyer, the insured party, buying a part again. Seller pay sailing date, voyage number, dates, subject matter insured, amount insured, all those things are there. Normally, in international trade, the goods have to be insured. What's the percentage of the insurance?
110.
110% of the value of the goods. Very good, 110%. What's the name for that?
Dilusha.
Dilusha. Which bank?
Bank of Silver.
Bank of Silver. Good. Bank of Silver where?
Rajini Junction branch, Tabuttegama.
You're from Tabuttegama?
Yes.
Right, good. What branch you said?
Rajini Junction, Tabuttegama.
All right, okay. So, insurance is minimum 110%, but that is not the maximum. Maximum you can insure any amount, but you should not over-insure it. Over-insurance is also another fraud. We are going to learn later. Then some other documents, a packing list. Packing list is, as per the title, as called for in the credit, or bearing a similar title or untitled that fulfills its function by containing any information as to the packing of the goods. How they have packed, in crates, in boxes, in wooden boxes, in cardboard boxes, everything. How the goods have been packed, right? Then, when credit indicates specific packing requirements without stipulating the documents to indicate compliance with these requirements, any date regarding the packing of the goods mentioned on the packing list, if presented, are not to conflict with those requirements, right? All these packing list details has to be complied with the terms and conditions of the LC as well as the commercial invoice. right? Commercial invoice එකේ තියෙනවා packing in cardboard boxes කියලා. Packing list එකේ තියෙනවා in wooden crates කියලා. එතකොට ඒ දෙක contradicted, right? The weight list is also like that. Weight list is what's the weight of the package? Weight of the package, right? Maybe the signature is normally we sign, but signature is not a must. If it is a certificate, yes, it is a must. It is a must, right? The then api gattut beneficiary certificate, yes, it has to be signed by the beneficiary, right? If it is not a certificate, just a list, then right? Then comes the beneficiary certificate. Beneficiary certificate needs to be signed by or for the beneficiary, on behalf of the beneficiary, or it has to be signed by the beneficiary, right? Again, this is also a benefit. Sometimes the beneficiary gives some undertaking that they have sent the documents, blah, 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 before this date or something, and they sign, right? Analysis certificate, inspection certificate, health certificate, phytosanitary certificates, quality, and other certificates, right? Komang එක basket එකකට දැම්මා. මේකෙන් වචන වලින් ඔයගන්ට රේසින් තේරුම ගන්න පුළුවන්, except for one, phytosanitary. What do you mean by phytosanitary? What do you mean by phytosanitary? Phytosanitary means fit for human consumption. Fit for human consumption. Can you remember few years back? අවුරුදු 5කට 6කට වගේ කලින් නේද තිබුණේ. ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මතකයි මේක. අපේ මේ milk food වල melamine තියෙනවා කියලා කතාවක් ආව මතකද? Anchor, Melbourne, Rati, ඔය හැම එකෙම import කරන්නේ melamine තියෙනවා කියලා. මතක නැද්ද? මතකද?
මතකයි සර්.
මතකයි නේද? ආවනේ melamine. ඒකෙදී ආපු එක කේස් එකක් තමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ දැන් ඔය දවස්වල ස්ටඩි කළා නම් මේ ගැන. This one issue was Sri Lankan government should have checked the phytosanitary certificate. Phytosanitary certificate. ඒකත් කළා නම් අහු වෙනවා melamine තිබුණාද කියලා. Right? That is fit for human consumption. නැත්නම් ඉතින් අපේ importersලා ගේන විදිහට ලාභයට හම්බ වෙනවා මේ අක්කු ගෙනේ බල්ලන්ට දෙන කිරිත් ගෙනේ අපිට පොවයි නේ බඩු කිරිත්. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ වැඩනේ අපේ මිනිස්සු කරන්නේ. All these certificates has to be signed, needs to be signed. Because when it comes to a certificate, it has to be signed. Your marriage certificate has been signed by both of you and the registrar. Our death certificate will also signed by the registrar of deaths. Right? ඒ වගේ තමයි. ඔයගේ O level certificate එක sign කරලා තියෙනවා. Education Ministry. If it is a certificate, it has to be signed, right? Certificate of origin. What is certificate of origin? In simple, okay. We take Nokia phones. You want to buy a original Nokia phone. If you want to buy an original Nokia phone, what is the certificate of origin you should look for? Which country?
Finland.
Huh?
Finland.
Finland, very good. Finland, or even Hungary is original. Finland or
Yes.
Hungary is original Nokia. Otherwise, we in the market you get Chinese, made in China, made in Taiwan, made in Korea, made in India, even made in Dubai. Nokia. අපිට Nokia තව කොච්චර හදනවද දන්නෙත් නැහැ. Right? But if you want to buy original one, then you have to ask for the certificate of origin. Right? It will be issued by a Chamber of Commerce or certified by a recognized issuing body, attesting that the goods in a particular export shipment have been produced, manufactured, or processed in a particular country. This is important when it comes to customs, custom duties and all. I mean, they ask for these things, right? මේ වගේ තමයි certificate of origin එක දෙන්නේ. Right? Export කවුද, consignor කවුද, goods කවුද? The goods are of Malaysian origin and signed by the Chamber of Commerce. Right? Okay. And certificate of origin is required by the custom authority of the importing country for the purpose of imposing import duty. Right? And then the certificate must provide that the information required by the credit and be consistent with all other documents. It would normally include the name of the company and address of the exporter, name of the importer, package numbers, and all those things. The details of control. What you have to understand is what is a certificate of origin. That's it. Right? I'm not going to ask these things in your exam. I might ask you what are the documents seen in international trade operations. At least if we can name the thing, that's it. But not for bill of lading. Bill of lading functions important, right? Okay. Right. I think I have covered the introduction as well as the documents used in international trade operation. Right. Next week, we are going to start the payment methods in international trade. There is open account, advance payment, documentary credit, and documentary collection. I'm going to discuss with you. Right? And when we are reaching documentary collection, then anyway by next week, you will get the URC 522. URC 522. Uniform Rules for Collection. I will ask Kalinga to upload it as early as possible. When you receive this, you can check the presentation. Make a print tag. Make a print tag. Right? I will tell you how to use this, because when we are discussing collection, documentary collection, this is it's going to be an important document. Right? Right. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Can I know? Right. Okay, then we'll call it a day. Right? You are going to have another session today.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. What time? 1:30.
1:30.
1:30. Okay. Then have your lunch or some snack and then get ready for that. I had to get ready for my next lecture at 1 o'clock. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Budet, thank you very much. Study කරන්න එච්චරයි මට ඕනේ.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Pass වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මම pass කරලා දෙන්න. Okay, thanks.